2 seconds, members. Okay, everyone, welcome back. Now we're on to agenda 11, the notice of motions. First up today is Councillor Doyle and Ferguson. They move.
Happy to take the motion as read, Mayor.
Yeah, and you have a seconder of Councillor Ferguson. Go ahead, members.
Mayor, the situation at Blueberry Primary School at the moment beggars belief a bit, to be perfectly honest. There was a range of members who had attended a meeting on the night before the Assembly election to hear from parents, teachers and governors around the threat from the Education Authority that the school was going to be closed. Now, this is being done under the auspices of the Sustainable Schools policy under 6 points. One of the main ones that the Education Authority, for example, is bringing forward as a reason to close the school is the financial situation and the enrollment trends. I have to say, having worked with the chair of the Board of Governors and the principal over recent weeks, it's fairly clear that the school has had one hand tied behind its back for a significant period of time leading up to this decision for pre-consultation. So, for example, Mayor, with regards to stable enrolment trends, Ballagry Primary School currently, the total enrolment for 21-22 is 44 students. But there are a range of other schools right across the north that range from 40, for example, St. Paul's Primary School in Ahull, to Dromore Primary School in Tyrone, St. Kieran's Primary School in Cushendon, who have around the same number of students and who are not being considered for closure by the Education Authority. When we also look at the financial position, and I know that this might not be the most exciting of aspects of it, but the school is actually saving the Education Authority around £28,000 in school transport costs. And even though that there is a deficit, for example, in the school, that's been as a result of a change of management around 3 times, which the Education Authority were insistent upon, which affected the school finances. And again, in relation to other schools, St. Bridget's in Altamuskin is actually also in a deficit and has the same number of school students as Ballagry. So the position from campaigners, students, school teachers, governors and staff is that this policy is not being applied consistently. With regards to the fact that this is the last rural school on the city side, there is considerable impact to the lives of students who go there, the rural community in general, and for the Education Authority to consider that it can send school children who have grown up in an environment where they're in a rural setting, they get a lot more one-to-one and intensive education, where they can send them, for example, to larger schools where their outcomes might not be as good, and that's not the fault of the schools.
Councillor Doyle, could you bring your remarks to a close, please?
I will, Mayor. I would ask that all members of council support Ballagry Primary School in their campaign to remain open. It's a fantastic wee school. We have to get behind them, and I'm certainly asking that all members do that today. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Doyle. Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Doyle for including me in this. Blueberry School is a beautiful school. It was founded in 1866 by the Royal Irish Society and was taken over by the EA in 1950. Since then, the Education Authority has invested by additional classrooms and further accommodation. I had the pleasure of attending the meeting in the school recently and was really impressed by the feel of the school. It's classed as a rural school. When you walk in, you're greeted with gorgeous views and even friendlier sheep and lamb who come to say hello. The parents are all really invested in the school and they're proud to be part of the community. There's a wide range of differences from parents who were ones who'd past pupils to ones whose children have just started, but they all spoke so highly of the school. Their own experiences and their children's at the school was second to none. The school is a welcoming place for all. No, it works really well for all children, those who might be a little bit socially shy, to children with special educational needs. Because of the smaller numbers of children at the school, everyone's needs are being seen to. There isn't children slipping through the cracks due to big classroom numbers or teachers being overwhelmed. There was many comments of the standard education that the children were getting, that whenever they go into secondary school, how teachers from the new schools could see very clearly that they come from Bluegrey, and their social skills as well as their academic skills, and have blossomed from their experience at the school. Unfortunately, they are under pressure, and I know Councillor Doyle has highlighted some of those pressures, and some of that is small numbers within the school bringing students in is due to this consultation and due to previous consultations where parents felt that the school may not necessarily stay open, so they chose to choose a different school. But some of those parents are moving back to the school with their children. If the school closes, children would have to travel into the city side or waterside every day. There would be no other option. It takes away from that real unique rural experience where what these children are getting at the school. The ministers visited and had commented on how amazing the school was. The governors have been working hard, coming up with plans on how that they can bring their numbers up. For example, working with local childcare providers and preschool. I think council has a role to keep Bluegrey open, as we've not yet completed our own area plan.
Councillor Ferguson, could you bring your remarks to a close, please?
No problem, Mayor. And it could be a case that future housing developments will pop up. I came away, Mayor, from this school thinking it was absolutely amazing. It's a rural school, and I think the fact that it's a rural school needs to be taken into consideration from the EA. So I'm more than happy to support this motion and support the school staying open. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Alderman McCready. Alderman McCready.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I just support this on behalf of the Ulster Unionist Party and thank members Doyle and Ferguson for bringing this forward. It's quite a unique situation they're in. It's very unfortunate, and I'd encourage every single member on this council to get behind the primary school with the staff, the Board of Governors, and the pupils and the families. I was fortunate to attend one of the pre-consultation events with the planning or the area planning team and the parents, and it was shocking. I have to say, see the conduct of how it was done. It was almost as if there was a predetermined outcome whilst they were chatting and regurgitating the same type of stuff over towards parents. I thought it was very disingenuous. And that's when I stepped in to answer a few specific questions or ask a few specific questions. And it's one that has been touched on by Member Doyle. The reason why their hands have been tied behind their back is there's two conflicting or contradictory policies within the EA. One is that there's a cap of 85 pupils, so they can't go any higher than that. But then they're also being disadvantaged by putting in that rural case, about not being sustainable. And those 6 points of criteria, they're not weighted equally. So the point is that the Education Authority are steering towards the financial viability above everything else in terms of the criteria, which I think is unfair and needs to be called out. I really wish, Mr. Mayor, that we had an education committee, that this could be challenged at the ministerial level, but it's not. So it falls on local government or local council at our level to try and back the schools so that they have our support. So I support it. My party supports it. I encourage everybody to get behind them. And I appreciate that. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman McCready. Alderman Devaney.
Thank you, Mayor, for allowing me in. Look, I welcome the motion coming forward here by Councillor Doyle and Ferguson, and I've listened to the plight of the parents of the children at the school out there, and I know our Foyle MLA, Gary Middleton, has been involved in this issue. I just want to put on record, Mayor, our support for keeping this school open. Too many times we've seen our rural schools closed. My colleague Alderman Kerrigan has just sent me a message that there were 6 primary schools and 1 secondary school closed in his DEA. And I believe this is one of the issues that has been raised at the rural issue group as well, as around education and sustaining the population within the rural area, and especially Mayor, when we see this type of issue happening here. But Mayor, just to put on the record that we support the proposal going forward here, I'm very supportive of it.
Thank you, Fred Alderman. Do we have any, Councillor Turney?
Thank you, Mayor, for bringing me in, and thanks to Councillors Doyle and Ferguson for bringing this motion. I attended the meeting out in Bulligree School at the beginning of May, and from the very moment that I stepped out of my car in the car park, you could feel an unbelievable sense of community and an unbelievable sense that that community were not going to allow to be rolled over or pushed over and allow this school to be closed without putting up a fight. And I think it's very encouraging to see, and hopefully we will see it today, that this council will back that community and their fight to ensure that the school stays open. Speaking that night to parents, the teachers, to the principal, to the Board of Governors, and to the wider community, that school is not only a school, it's the focus, it's the centre point of their community, and we need to join them and help them in any way we can to ensure that it stays open. There are issues, in my opinion, around some of the rationale that EA are coming up with. I find it incredibly hard to believe that the Education Authority are refusing to come and meet face to face with parents and staff, and the only thing that they have offered and continue to offer, to the best of my understanding, is a Zoom meeting, which took place to let people know really that they were beginning this consultation. There's no doubt that this school has got a group of teachers and governors and supportive parents who are going to do all that they can to ensure that this school thrives over the coming years, and to ensure that the pupils who are currently enrolled in it and hopefully will be enrolled in it in the years to come continue to thrive as well and have a really, really good and enjoyable educational experience. The SDLP are fully and wholeheartedly supportive of this notice of motion. We're supportive of the campaign by the school and by the parents. They do all we can to ensure it
Councillor
opens.
Turney, could you bring your regards to a close, please?
No problem, Mayor. The only thing that I would do is, in closing, is I would appeal to the Education Authority to come to the school, have a look around, speak to the parents, speak to the wider community, and understand that it's not just a school you're closing, it's a community facility, and it's the centrepiece of the Bulligree community, and we fully support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Turney. Councillor Lowe, Patricia.
Thank you, Mayor. I suppose our first concern as a party has to be what is in the best interest of children and who attend the school, and ensuring their educational and pastoral well-being is paramount. I also attended that meeting on the night before the election, and I have to say the passion within the room was palpable regarding the keeping that school open. As a party, we have met with the school, and they have assured us that they have a plan for sustainability. We also had a Zoom meeting as a party with EA, and gave our thoughts around the matter very clearly to them. And it's in that context, I believe, there is an onus in the EA to give the plan that the school do have a fair wind. We all understand that there will be concerns around sustainability while enrolments are low, but we also have to recognise that there are particular circumstances that impact on small, isolated schools, especially on border areas. The EA and the area planning process should be flexible enough to take into account of what works within each area, and to address the issues that schools face and to help them move towards a more sustainable position. They should also recognise the excellent work that the school is doing, particularly in relation to shared education programmes with schools in Donegal. We need more sharing across educational boundaries, not less. While enrolments and finances are hugely important, I would urge the EA to fully consider all the issues and particular circumstances as part of the current consultation process. And from our part, we fully, on behalf of Sinn Féin, we fully support the motion brought forward here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Luke. Councillor Hargan.
Thank you, Mayor. And People Before Profit fully support this motion. As others have said, they were at the meeting the night before the election, May 4th, and Maeve O'Neill and myself were there as well. And it was very clear that there's a great school community there, and there's great energy to keep this school going. There's a lot of anger about how they're being treated by the Education Authority. This is supposed to be a consultation, but I think we know how consultations work. Sometimes they're just box ticking operations, and the plan is already in place, and it doesn't matter what the evidence is. So I think we have to stand in solidarity with the Ballugry primary school community, and do everything we can to help this campaign. And it is a campaign. That was very clear from the staff at the school, the parents of students there, ex-students and community members as well, that there's real solidarity around this. And I think we have to do everything we can to convey that message to the Education Authority. If we pass this motion tonight, that should give the campaign some confidence that we're taking this very seriously and we mean to back them up. It also sends a message to the Education Authority that the school, while it might be a smaller school in a rural community, they're not on their own, and they have the backing of this council right now. So we're in full solidarity. If I can propose an amendment, it's just that I think we should invite in representatives from the school itself, so that they get a platform here, so that they can speak to us about why this school deserves to stay open, so that they have the opportunity to publicly challenge the some of the arguments that the Education Authority have put forward, so that they can explain the positive work that they've done over the last number of years to sustain this school. And I think it's about giving them a platform, whether it's the staff there, teachers, parents, former students.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hargan.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank
So
you.
I'm just going to put
Could
that
you
in
put
the
that
chat room.
proposal on the
Yeah.
chat box, 2 seconds, members?
Rather than to education.
And Councillor Donnelly second that. 2 seconds, members. Alderman Hussey, could you put your mic off? Happy enough for that, members. Councillor Boyle has been second already. Okay, members, there's a amendment on the table here, on the screens, apologies, from Councillor Hargan. Councillor Donnelly, do you want to speak on both?
Yeah, Chair, stuff Councillor Harkin had read my mind. I had it typed out and all in the inbox. No, look, yeah, unfortunately I couldn't make the meeting at the school, but I have spoke to some members of staff and supporters in the meantime. This is a school that's been open for 150 years and providing outstanding learning experiences. The children, Ballugry is an inclusive school, probably one of the most inclusive schools in the district. There's children from different religions, backgrounds, and cultures, and if they close this school, will have a huge impact on particular Protestant families in our local area who are a minority, and I think that will be an absolute shame. The school's numbers, they were going down, but in September they have been rising. This September they will have risen for 3 years in a row. There is a plan, and there is a plan for a Belugaree nursery. It's been granted planning permission to open next door to the school, and hopefully it will be operational by September 2023. And this will provide a steady number of pupils to the school, annually increasing enrollment. They've also applied to host children from Ukraine. So and small schools aren't necessarily a bad thing. There is children who are suited to these smaller schools. Particularly children who would be on the spectrum with autism, which has, the numbers of children has increased dramatically in recent years. A lot of the stuff that I was going to say has already been said. There's almost a feeling that this is a fait accompli, and there's issues around the rural needs assessment. But they take this school and they look at a small period in its history and assess it by that, and just they throw it to the wind would be an absolute shame. Every relationship, every business, every government, every sports team goes through a patch where there will be a dip, and they write it off at that stage would be an absolute shame. I think that we need to send a strong message here, and I'm glad Councillor Harkin has put that amendment in. I think it's also.
Could you bring your remarks to a close, please?
I will, yeah. I think it's also important that we hear firsthand from the school. So very happy to support, and like to thank Councillor Doyle and Councillor Ferguson for bringing this motion here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Alderman Corrigan, do you want to speak on the amendment?
I'll speak very briefly, Mayor. I didn't really intend to speak as Alderman Devaney has spoken on behalf of the party, but Chair, I do wish thank the proposal and second for bringing it forward, and I do wish the school well. As Alderman Devaney's mentioned, we have suffered in my own DA, and that's before my time as well. But I've been at the cold front on it there, where the wee rural school that you have your weigh-ins at, closes. My eldest cub was in P3, the next cub was in P2, and the Cuddy was in primary 1. And, our wee school at Bridge Hill closed. So, and again, within our own DA, we've lost, they're not all within the DA. St David's there in Scrahy, and Summies and Low. It's just outside our council area. Technically, in Fermanoma, but it's about half a mile out of it. But it would have served part of our it would have been serving DEA members of our DEA. But St David's and Scrahy's gone, Enva as well, and St Francis of Assisi at Drumna Bay. That's 3 Catholic maintained schools, primary schools wiped out. Would have been rural schools, and again in the controlled sector, Ergana Primary School gone, Drumlega Primary School, and Bridge Hill Primary School. So I mean, we've seen how these small rural schools, and I know how well and how much it's a real family in these rural schools, and I know where this wee school is here, and it's an idyllic wee location, as they all are, all the wee rural schools are, and I just wish them all the very best. I hope that they can have some success, but being at it, had ones down from Education Board, and it's just very much a matter of fact kind of thing that come across, and there seems to be very little give on it, but I hope they have more success than we have had. And my own DA, as I say, we've lost effectively 6 primary schools wiped out. That's put pressure on the other primary schools, and then there's other schools that are oversubscribed, and it causes a knock-on effect to everything else, and it rips the heart out of a community when you lose that local primary school. So, as I say, I send my best wishes to the school, and hopefully they can have success. Thank you very much, Mayor, for allowing me in.
Thank you, Alderman Corrigan. Alderman Hussey, on both on the amendment as well.
On the opposite motion as it is now.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Firstly, can I thank the proposer and seconder, and particularly the issue within the proposal that those responsible, the area planning team, be invited to come before council, and it is only, of course, right and proper that representatives from the school come and explain their case to council as well, although that has already been done to representatives in and about the city area. Councillor Turney has referred quite properly to this is not a school, it's a community. I have never been in that school, but I've driven past it quite a few times. And, just driving past it, you can sense that there is a community. It's not just a school. There's always something going on at it. And as people have said, it's a great location and all the rest of it. Councillor Kerrigan has referred to closures in our own area. I was particularly involved with one with the Ergana school closing because I was on the Board of Governors. And as Councillor Kerrigan says, it will be an uphill fight. Sometimes there's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy and some of the stuff that comes out from the Education Authority. And indeed, we found schools in our area. Once the notion gets out, all right, the EA or back in that day, it was the Western Education Labour Board, are considering closing schools. Bridge Hill is one that was named there. It did suffer because there was this notion the school is going to close. What's the point in sending my kid there to start their educational journey and maybe have to move in a year, 2 years' time and upset their whole progress? I totally despair at the education.
Alderman Halsey, could you bring the remarks to a close, please?
Yeah, I will do, Chair or Mayor. I totally despair at the Education Authority's corralling of our children into economic units rather than to a site of educational advancement.
Thank you, Alderman Halsey, for that. Thank you. Okay, members, on the proposal, on the motion here, there's an amendment. Let me take it to a vote. I don't hear any more speakers, and I don't hear any dissenting voices. Members on the amendment? Not on this here part. Councillor Doyle, you'll come back in a minute.
Chair, we're very supportive of the amendment, the DUP.
Yep. Happy enough, members. So if anybody's against this or look at this as this is Dean, could you let me know now in the chat box or on the screen? Okay, members, then the amendment passes. Okay, Councillor Doyle, you want to sum up now?
Thank all colleagues across supported this. I know that it will mean a lot to everyone involved with the school. Of how the EA are treating this process. They should get them in and they should leave here with no doubt in their mind that we have got this school's back because it's a fantastic school. It's not just about, as members have said, the school. It's about the bigger picture. It's about the community, and ticking boxes is not keeping these kids in a school that very seriously cares for them, that sees their development as a responsibility. And I have to say, they had visiting the school a number of times. If there were plenty of other schools of different sizes around this district like it, we would be much better off. So thank you, and I hope everyone will vote for the motion. Thank you.
Mayor, you're on mute.
Have to say that all again, members. Okay, members, I'm not hearing any dissenting voices here on the substantial motion. So, members, anybody look at the abstain or go against it? Could you let me know now on the chat box? Okay, members, that motion passes from Councillor Doyle Ferguson. Well done. Members, the time is now 12 minutes past 6. Members, I'll see you back at 25 past 6. Thank you now. Okay, members, welcome back. Next motion we have is from Councillor Boyle.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just wait for it to appear on the screen for other members. Thanks, Mayor.
And Councillor Cusack second that, yeah.
Thank you to Councillor Cusack for seconding. Mayor, if it's okay with you, well, could we take that as read, yeah? Yep, okay, thanks, Mayor. Look, Mayor, over the years, as an elected representative, I've encountered very many frustrations when trying to address infrastructure issues in the Glenowin area of the city. I'm sure others know what I'm talking about, particularly those who are elected to represent that area. And most notably, land ownership, responsibility for upkeep, have over time proven to be a bit of a major stumbling block in reality. Demographically, Glenowin has a little bit of an older population, and of course, as the years go on, we might expect that to change, and we'll see younger families move back into it over time. But the reality of it is, and the reason I've brought this motion is because the estate and its design, and it's an old estate, presents physical challenges for young and old alike. There are very many steep steps. The road is in a poor state of repair. The grass verges are in much need of attention, particularly very recently as one of the utility companies have ploughed up many of those areas. Many of the communal walls within the estate are also in need of significant attention, as are a significant number of the walkways within the estate. So overall, the Glenowin estate, or Glenowin Park as it's known, it's not in good. It's not in a good state of repair. And as my motion points out, Glenowin Park.
Councillor Boyle, we have lost you there.
Mayor, can you hear me now? You can't. Sorry, my Wi-Fi dropped.
Go ahead.
Mayor, I'm not sure where I was when you lost me, but basically, look, I'll cut that chase. Really, overall, the estate isn't in a great state of repair, and as my motion points out, Glenowin Park would work as a very good, even an excellent starting point as a pilot scheme for our council, where there would be learning opportunities going forward. Because I have absolutely no doubt that there will be other areas in the city and the district. Some are known to me, some that aren't, which could also benefit from this kind of strategy or this kind of working a group going forward, or task force, as I've referred to it in future years. So, in truth, it's not unusual for constituents and then only tell me that they feel like they're living in a forgotten estate. There are, of course, very many good people, honest people, hard-working people who live in the estate, and they pay their rates the same way as everybody else does. And they're, in my view, entirely deserving of our support on this particular occasion. And as I pointed out, for me, this is an opportunity going forward for other areas of the city and district, which also may require particular attention. I have specified some of the departments and stakeholders within the motion, but again, I wasn't trying to be in any way exclusive about that. If the task force come to conclusion that there are others that they would want to speak to, then of course I think that would be for the task force to arrive at as a decision. And of course, consultation with local people would be key to all of this going forward, Mayor. So that's it in a nutshell in front of the council today, and I'm very hopeful that everybody can support my motion this evening. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Boyle. Okay, members, next on the list we have Councillor Cusack.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks to Councillor Boyle for bringing this motion forward. Mayor, I grew up in Glenowin in the 1970s and early 80s, and when it was built in the early 70s, it was purely social housing, and many young families were absolutely delighted to be there. I think it actually won an award at the time for its design, would you believe it? And for us as young children, the design and layout made a fantastic play area. There were so many alleys, there were steep steps, there were bankings, there were play squares, and all of the area was surrounded by the forest, and as people affectionately called it, the resi. And for any healthy young child, it was an absolute adventure park, and I loved it, and all of my friends loved it. But looking at it now, I think we would all agree it's a design nightmare, and especially for many of its aging residents. And it just would not be allowed. Battling the problems there is a headache. There are so many issues of ownership here now with private landlords, housing executive, housing association, and owner occupiers the like. And so determining responsibility for issues is often impossible. And like Glenone, I know, has maintained a great community, and many of my childhood friends and their families still live there. And while I don't represent it, it's not my constituency, I'm frequently in touch with them about many issues which have slowly come to light over the past 50 years. And I really believe that now is the time for everyone to come together and tackle these problems head on. And the people of this area, they really, really deserve it. And as John's motion has stated, this now can pave the way to create the template and create a precedent for many other communities in our city and district which are experiencing that neglect. Thank you for listening, and I really hope everybody supports this very meaning motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Fat. Councillor O'Neill.
Thanks, Mayor. People Before Profit will be supporting this motion. I know that Councillor Boyle had said about the list of stakeholders not being exhaustive, but I think it would be good if an amendment was allowed to include local residents within that group and have that within the motion, because at the end of the day they are the most important stakeholder in this process. So I want to propose that as an amendment. And I know Councillor Boyle has mentioned local residents and has said the list isn't exhaustive, but I do think it would be good if that was written down within the motion. The Glenone area.
Chair, point of order, Chair, if you don't mind. And Councillor Neil, sorry for interrupting, but when I said identifiable stakeholders, that is effectively what I meant by that, the inclusion of those two words.
Yeah, I've acknowledged that, Councillor Boyle, thank you. I just was saying that if we had it written down, I think it would make the motion stronger.
2 seconds, members. Okay, Councillor O'Neill, you're looking to have amendment. Could you put it on the chat box and we'll go through the process? And if our solicitor sees the amendment, we'll move on with that. So if you could put that on the chat box where you want that.
That should be that on there, Mayor. Happy to continue. It's not too controversial.
Sorry, 2 seconds just. Yeah, happy enough with that. Go ahead, Councillor O'Neill. And you have a seconder, Councillor Donnelly.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I've been up in Glenone, working with residents multiple times since coming on the council, and before it working alongside other people before profit activists. And there's no doubt that this area has been neglected by those who should be responsible for it, such as Apex and DFI. And I think what happens is that each authority says that's not my problem, it's their problem, and they're both passing the buck, and as a result nothing is getting done. And Glenone was Apex's first estate. It was their the first estate, and I think there's been a lot of development which is so welcome. A lot of social housing development, but I think 50 years on from Glenowen, was developed, and to see the neglect and the forgottenness of that area, like that doesn't bode well for me and the estates which are now being developed. What is are they going to be in the same state in 50 years time? So I think it's really right that Glenowen and the infrastructure issues within Glenowen are addressed, because the local community there are absolutely wonderful. They've been there for generations. A lot of people move back with their families who have grown up there, because nearly everybody knows each other, and I've seen that from going around door to door with local residents there trying to address the issues. Local residents feel very, very strongly about the upkeep.
You bring your remarks to a close, please.
No worries. And like accessibility, has been mentioned, and I think it's really, really important, particularly with an aging population. Like we have
Thank you, Councillor O'Neill. Thank you. Okay, members, there's an amendment on it. Councillor McGinley, do you want to speak on the amendment?
I can speak to the amendment and the substantive. We're in support of the amendment.
Perfect. Go ahead.
Mayor for letting me in, and thank you to Councillor Boyle for bringing forward this motion. On behalf of Sinn Féin, we are supporting this motion in full, and as a fellow councillor in the area with Councillor Boyle and Councillor O'Neill, and I see that Councillor Donnelly is going to be coming in as well, and also Councillor Logue, there's massive issues that we have noticed, and I would agree completely with the points that have been raised within this motion. Over the years, Tina Burke was the councillor before me. Lots of requests have went in from Sinn Féin representatives, and I'm sure other representatives as well, in terms of trying to improve this area. But as has been alluded to, there's been a distinct lack of responsibility from any particular body to take that responsibility for who looks after Glenowen. We've requested traffic calming measures at the request of residents that DFI have yet to commit to. We've requested resurfacing on roads. We've requested that the road at the back has a lower speed, as the wall that surrounds Glenowen has been knocked down on numerous occasions because of that it's at the national speed limit of 60 mile an hour, which is just too fast. Alongside that, I've been dealing with Apex and DFI in more recent times in regards to what Councillor Boyle had related to there and around the grass cutting. There's a lack of departmental working between Apex and DFI when it comes to that. Currently, Apex cut the grass, but they don't cut around the edges because the edges touch the footpath, which is owned by DFI, which is leading to overgrown grass edges, which subsequently impacts on the drainage and numerous other issues. So there is a lot of issues within that area. And I and Sinn Féin are completely in support of the task force. And if the stakeholders include local representatives, which I think it most likely does, and that has sort of been alluded to, I would be happy to be part of that conversation as well, and making representation for people in Glenowen Park. For a million miles.
Thank you, Councillor McGinley. Alderman Devaney, would you like to speak on both?
Yes, no problem, Chair, and our party has no problem in supporting the amendment and the substantive motion here. Look, our party is very supportive of enhancement of any area, whether it's in the city side or waterside or rural area. And when I look, I do welcome the report coming forward here. I do realise there are issues in the Glenowen area, and look, Mayor, we could name quite a number of areas where we have issues and around grass cutting and other issues as well. My outgoing colleague, Alderman McClintock, was very much to the fore on issues and around Tully Alley. Hasn't been maintained or upgraded probably in the last 40 years as well. But look, welcome the report coming forward here. And just as a rural councillor, we have issues in our rural villages as well, where we have residents in a rural village feel left out and forgotten as well. But look, just to welcome this as a pilot scheme and see how it goes, and hope it works out well so we can learn the lessons from it. But Mayor, happy to support the amendment and the substantive motion.
Thank you, Councillor Donnelly.
Good, Chair, and just to thank Councillor Boyle for the motion and Councillor O'Neill for amendment, which I believe strengthens it. Look, a lot of it has already been said, and like Councillor Cusick, it's an area where I have a close affinity. I had a number of relatives living there, and I spent a lot of my childhood in and around Glenowen, and many happy memories. And like the other representatives that's spoken here tonight, I share the frustrations because I too attempt to deal with a number of issues on behalf of residents. And as has been outlined by previous speakers, it has basically fallen on deaf ears, and there's a lot of buck passing. So there is a lot of frustrations from the residents in Glenone, and happy to support the motion and amendment, and hopefully that it will make people sit up and take notice and give proper services to the people of Glenone that very sadly has been lacking over decades. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Donnelly. Councillor Hargan.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Yeah, this is an important discussion, and I think that residents have to be at the heart of this, and residents there, as people will know, have been campaigning for the repairs that need to be done, and it's been a very, very frustrating experience. And I've had interactions with Apex and DFI. I mean, me and Eamon met with them. That's how far back this goes. And we've walked around that estate twice with Apex representatives, and we have established who's responsible for what, but it doesn't get done. And residents have been in a situation of signing petitions and having hundreds of names, dropping it down to Apex, and nothing happens. And I think this is not just people being abandoned by, this is organisations choosing not to take responsibility because it's expensive to fix, and they're willing to let this estate fall apart. And the threat is there's been people injured, young people, children injured because of that neglect. And my experience with Apex in particular has been, I think that they've been disgraceful. So they need to be held to account. And if this motion gives residents more confidence to challenge them and also holds Apex and others to account, that's going to be a good thing. But yeah, it's look, the way people have been treated there has been a disgrace. And Apex, I know other councillors have had a very difficult time dealing with Apex as well, where people have been stonewalled and then told that's not our responsibility after they've agreed that it is. And this comes down to actually putting funding into fixing this estate up, and it makes people feel like they don't matter there. And that's what we have to change. So this could be a brilliant estate again in terms of its infrastructure, but it's going to require funding.
Councillor Hargan, could
so
you
I'm
bring
going
your
to stop
remarks to a
there, Mayor.
close?
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Halsey.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Boyle, for bringing an appropriate motion to Council. I think it's only right and proper that as local elected representatives, we deal with the concerns of our electors, and this is directly doing that, which is what we should be at. Supporting this motion is a no-brainer and will be supported. And I think, as Councillor or Alderman Devaney has alluded to, I'm sure each and every one of us can highlight particular areas in our own electoral areas where the electors do have their concerns. I'm sure the Strabane councillors would have their concerns with regard to Ballycolman, just to name drop. And I suppose there's a question, I will be supporting the motion, but a question for Councillor Boyle when he's summing up. Have there been interagency meetings? I know these take place in our own area, so have there been interagency meetings? And are we being told that they're just having no effect? And secondly, is there a percentage of private housing in the particular estate? I went online there and checked out, and I seem to see quite a few properties actually for sale within the estate. So is there a preponderance of private housing? Because that can sometimes muddy the water when we come to dealing with agencies. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Halsey. Okay, members, there's a memo on the screen there. I see no further speakers. And hear no dissenting voices in this one. So if you're looking to abstain or go against the amendment, could you let me know now on the chat box? Okay, members, the amendment passes. On the substantial motion, members, I'm going to bring Councillor Boyle back and now to sum up. Councillor Boyle?
Thank you, Mayor. I think we're working on the assumption that nobody else wants to address the substantive motion. I think everybody pointed out that they were happy to do both. So look, first off, Mayor, thanks to everybody for supporting the motion. I certainly did feel it was important to try and highlight this situation. In short, to Alderman Hussey's question, no, not to the best of my knowledge. And to the other question, yes, there are a number of owner-occupiers, and that was referenced when I spoke initially, in that I did say that there are difficulties across different ownerships and land ownerships, etc. This estate was actually originally a Northern Ireland Housing Executive Estate. They owned the development, and so over recent years, Apex Housing bought some of the properties. But there, as I said, there are also many owner-occupiers and indeed private rentals within the estate. However, Mayor, just to continue, the narrative across from all representatives, I'm not sure what's going on there, Mayor. The narrative across the board from all representatives here is entirely accurate. I mean, that's been my experience as well. It's extremely frustrating for residents, and we've all summed that up. In fact, it was best summed up by a constituent I spoke to fairly recently, who's been living in the estate literally since it was built, and she said it feels like nobody cares anymore. We've been totally forgotten about, and we've been left to our own devices. Well, not anymore. I think we've all spoken with one voice tonight. We as a council are with the people of Glenone, and we are by their side, and we are determined to see that we can address all of the issues in relation to the infrastructure in that particular estate. And I agree with some of the speakers. We can make this small estate great again. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for that, Councillor Boyle. Members, there's Thank you, members. 3 seconds, members.
Councillor Sina Barr might be unmuted.
Sorry, members.
Can you hear me, members?
Could you keep your mic off, please? Okay, members. So this one. No, I'm going to move on just to get this one done. Members. So there's.
I think Derek has his mic on.
Members, can you hear me?
Sorry. Members, 2 seconds. On that too. Hello.
Mayor, can you hear me?
Sorry, members, we're just having some technical problems here. If you just bear with us for a moment while the mayor's testing the equipment. Thank you.
Councillor Barr, we'll be taking a substantial motion here. So 2 seconds on your motion.
Testing from the chamber. Testing. Can members hear us?
Yeah.
Loud and clear, John.
Loud and clear, John.
Yeah, I think it's solved. Yeah.
Okay, members, moving back to
the
the substantial motion.
motion.
No, it's still not
No,
resolved.
it's still not
There.
resolved.
There's an
Yeah,
echo.
it's still.
Testing.
Okay.
Members, that fine now, yeah?
Yeah, that's fine now.
Improved.
Okay. Thank you, members. Members, moving back to the substantial motion of Councillor Boyes. I'm not hearing any dissent voices. Anybody looking to abstain or go against the substantial motion, could you let me know now on the screen or on the chat box? Okay, members, that substantial motion passes. Members, moving on now to Councillor C9 Power to move. Councillor
Thank you.
Turley second that.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'll take the motion as it's read. I'm not sure if everybody can hear me.
Yeah, like we can all hear.
Thank you. Okay, Mayor, I'm sure I speak for many when I say most people are regularly forced to step out into the road in order to navigate around cars parked halfway up the pavement. And this means pedestrians have to constantly be vigilant and alert to avoid being hit by oncoming traffic. And most of us have had similar experiences, or some may even have had to miss or near misses of being hit by a car. Over the last couple of weeks, I have been contacted by numerous constituents with complaints about people parking on footpaths. And one resident told me he was nearly hit by a car as he was out walking a dog and his daughter. And he was one of the lucky ones because their cars were parked on the pavement where he was supposed to be walking through. And we know that other pedestrians have not been so lucky, particularly across the UK. There are about 542 people who died because they were involved in motor vehicles accident. The oldest and youngest are the most at risk, particularly because of people parking on pavements. Mayor, I'm sure in our lifetime, everyone has parked on a footpath, and it is easily done when, particularly if there are no parking spaces available. Does that mean, does that make it right? No. And does that mean you're a bad person? Absolutely not. But it is inconsiderate of vulnerable people. They are visually or mobility impaired, parents with prams, and our senior citizens are mostly at risk. And this is why we need to address this issue urgently. In 2019, the Scottish Parliament passed a law which created a ban on pavement parking with some exceptions. And in Ireland, the Road Traffic and Parking Regulation 1997 set out a number of parking restrictions, including no parking on a footpath, either partly or wholly. And the fine for parking on footpaths, bus or cycles lane, was recently doubled from 40 to 80. If we were to ban pavement parking, it means that people in wheelchairs, parents with push chairs, and older adults who are currently forced into overcoming traffic, when faced with vehicle blocking their pathway, will now be able to enjoy a new freedom. But the motion before council today is not advocating on outright ban of pavement parking, although this is the general direction of travel in most jurisdictions. Instead, I am asking Council to promote the DFI's initial campaign on drivers' education. Members may remember that the Department of Infrastructure under my party colleague Nicola Malone launched a Think Before You Park campaign to encourage more considerate parking, particularly the use of official car
Councillor,
parks.
could you bring your
Of
remarks
which
to a close, please?
I will do so, Mayor. And if all this fails to change behavior, then enforcement action may be required further down the line. But I will leave that to the public consultation, which
Thank
was
you.
launched in
Thank you
December.
very much.
So,
Thank you.
members, I hope you will. Okay.
Members, Councillor Ferguson.
Mayor, I think Councillor Tierney requested to speak before me there.
Sorry, members, I have a chat box in front of me. Councillor Tierney, apologies. Thank you, Rachel, for that.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks, Rachel. Thanks to Councillor Sinoy Barr for bringing this motion. I am guilty of being an inconsiderate parker. It wasn't intentional, and I didn't even realise that I had done it until it was brought to my attention thereafter. And thinking of the inconvenience that you can cause by doing this is something I think that everyone who gets themselves on the footpath and parks in that way should do. There are so many possibilities that could happen, and you can force young children, parents with pushchairs, people in wheelchairs, etc., out onto the pavement or completely block their way. I genuinely don't think that is done intentionally, and I know in the one that was brought to my attention, it certainly wasn't intentional, and I apologise to the people that I did block at that particular time. But I don't think that it is done intentionally. And I think Councillor Barr referenced it in her speaking notes. You know, it doesn't make someone a bad person if they've done it. But I think the Think Before You Park campaign is something that we could do to try and eradicate it and to try and encourage people not to do it. We know that parking is a big issue around the city, particularly and then around the universities and around the city centre. We all know of the issues parking in and around the Bogside area. So I think if we can endorse this Think Before You Park campaign, it is something that we can do to ease the burden on other people and trying to show drivers that all it takes is a few minutes to drive on a little bit further and find an appropriate parking space. As I said, Mayor, I've done it myself. It's not something that I'm proud of by any stretch of the imagination, but it's campaigns like this, I think, that will go a long, long way to try and get people to think and make sure that they're not blocking anybody else's way. But thanks to Councillor Barr for bringing the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tierney. Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Sina Barr, for bringing the motion forward. It is such an important campaign. I understand that we do have a number of areas in the district which are hotspots for pavement parking, and it might seem harmless, but it does have a huge detrimental impact on many people. The campaign highlights how many people with CNI dogs struggle to pass parked cars on pavements. The dogs are trained to keep their owners safe, and it goes against all their training to redirect their owners onto the road to pass a car. Our wheelchairs, for example, come in all shapes and sizes and give a great deal of independence to the person who is in need of them, but that independence is stripped away when they can't travel a short distance due to a parked car, usually parked on the drop curb to save them from damage in the car. I'm sure, like others have said, we've all been guilty of this. And when you're in a bind and need to get parked quickly and you don't think past your own needs, but this campaign does make us think and make us aware of the implications. Many people with disabilities have to plan their trips to consider the distance that they're going to travel on foot or by wheelchair, even with their guide dogs. It takes time to build up that confidence, and simple actions of parking on a pavement can mean they lose that confidence and much needed independence. Mayor, I want to thank Councillor Sienna Barr for bringing this motion. I think it is a huge campaign and a really important one. I also want to add that, you know, the Think Before You Park campaign should not be used as a tool to label everyone who parks on pavements as inconsiderate. I know there are a number of people with disabilities who will do this to get closer access to a service, but only to do it if there's enough room for both the car and the person accessing the pathway can access that pathway as well. So the message out there is to really do think before you park and consider whether your car is obstructing a clear pathway for a number of different people here in our city and district. So we fully support this motion. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. Alderman Devaney.
Thank you, Mayor, for allowing me in. And look, I welcome the motion coming forward here by Councillor Sienna Barr. It's a very pertinent issue. And I do think the message coming across here is think before you park. And, you know, it's not about enforcing it, it's about probably educating drivers who continually park on footpaths. And I know it is a difficult issue within, you know, the City and London area and even in Strabane parking. But Mayor, those areas are covered by, you know, the wardens, and look, there are penalties for those out there. But look, I have an incident in Brady, and I've been continually, I've reported it to the PSNI probably about over this last 2 years, continually, where there are cars parked on a footpath beside the Solis Centre. And look, the residents in the local area have to come up that footpath and step out onto the road and out onto a very, very busy A5, and the police are very, very reluctant to do anything about it. You know, they sort of say that they can't enforce it or they can't put a penalty on them. And, you know, I feel disappointed as a rural councillor that this is an issue where people with disabilities have to step out onto the A5. But look, I understand the gist of the motion here. And as I said earlier on, it's about educating people. And, you know, we have to think of those people, you know, parents with buggies, and those with a range of disabilities that people have trying to get about our city. And it's important that when drivers are in the city that they do think before you park. And I think it's a very, very pertinent message. And Mayor, we have no problem in supporting the notice of motion to support this Think Before You Park campaign. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Devaney. Keither Boy, Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor. We and Sinn Féin fully support the motion brought before us here this evening by Councillor Sienna Barr. We fully endorse the Think Before You Park campaign also. Inconsiderate parking on pavements and parking on corners obstructing sight lines and motorist views is a very common and prevalent practice throughout our towns, cities and villages. It happens on almost every street every day, and there needs to be a zero tolerance applied. More powers to prosecute and better enforcement powers, I believe, is what's needed to deal with those who park illegally. A number of issues that have been flagged up with myself from constituents is people parking in disabled bays without displaying a blue badge. And I'm referring to those not entitled to park in disabled bays. We have, I'm aware of disabled motorists not being able to park near or at their destination because of people parking close by and on pavements outside of their homes. The proposer of the motion mentioned wheelchair users, sight impaired and hearing loss, parents and elderly people also who have mobility issues, and parents with prams. These are all people that are affected by inconsiderate motorists and their failure and lack of understanding of how to park safely and properly, forcing people onto the road to oncoming traffic. And don't get me started, Mayor, on work vans parking on pavements outside of homes, on streets. We also need to ensure that there are adequate disabled parking bays for disabled people. I believe they're not enough across the city and district, and we also must address the level of bureaucracy that there is when someone applies for a disabled parking bay outside of or near their home. I do appreciate that criteria has to be applied, but when people have genuine reasons to ascertain and get a disabled parking bay, and they have to go forward and appeal a decision. Recently, I helped a family apply for a disabled parking bay, The lady lives out opposite a school and she has multiple complex medical needs. And, you know, she has to attend many appointments. So during the school day, she has to arrange her appointments around the pick up and drop off at school and at school closing times. She's often had to sit for 20 or 30 minutes near her home.
Councillor Boyle, could you bring your remarks to a close, please?
Yeah, I will, because of inconsiderate parking. You know, I think the PSNI and DFI definitely need to be given more enforcement powers to address the problem. And the Think Before You Park campaign also needs more awareness.
Thank you for that, Councillor Boyle.
We support the motion.
I appreciate it, Councillor Boyle. Okay, Councillor O'Neill.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks to Councillor Sonoy Barr for bringing this motion forward. It is something that I'm very passionate about, having worked in community physiotherapy, so enabling people to be able to get out of their house, you know, with whatever mobility difficulty they might have faced, and you know, like that is already a challenge within itself. And Councillor Ferguson had said about the confidence that people need to build up in order to, you know, navigate our streets and things, and then you know, to have a blockage in the path, you know, such as a car, you know, really does. It presents a lot more challenges that I think many of us can comprehend. And, you know, at the end of the day, our pavements aren't, you know, good enough a lot of the time, you know, for people with mobility difficulties to walk on, never mind with a car in their way. And I think the important thing about this motion is the awareness raising of it, because as Councillor Tierney has said, you know, some people just don't think because they maybe have never had to deal with that situation. So I think the awareness raising is really, really important. But I think we also need to look at the type of society and the type of cities and communities that we've designed. Like, we have designed a car dependent society. We've designed a society that, you know, really has not embraced and really invested in public transport. We have it, but we, you know, it's really not working in a way that, like, you know, will get people out of the car. Or we haven't designed cycle lanes in a way that are safe to get people out of the car. And, you know, we've designed our communities, our cities and our streets in a way that actually disables people. And, you know, it's not someone's health that disables them, but it's society. And we need to look, you know, at that bigger picture as well, because, you know, why is it that people you know, park up in the pavements, or why is it that, you know, we need to take, you know, use the car always? And, you know, so there needs to be a little reflection on that. And I definitely agree that we need to look at, I think Councillor Boyle had said about more disabled parking, because, you know, there is a need for, you know, for cars also, for, you know, people with disabilities, particularly with, you know, per exercise.
Councillor O'Neill, you bring your remarks to a close, please.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I want to support people for profit, support the motion, and I think the awareness raising element is the most important. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Neill. Okay, Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Mayor. I wish to propose an amendment that's in the chat box.
Okay, Alderman Hussey, have you?
I would second it, Alderman Devaney.
Alderman Devaney, second. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Sonoy Barr for bringing the motion. When I seen the motion, I thought, surely that is the case, but I then began to look into it, and in Northern Ireland there is no general ban on pavement parking. You can't pavement park on clearways or where there is already road markings, double yellow lines, etc. You can't do that. That is where it is illegal. However, when it comes to parking on the pavement, generally, there is no general ban. However, I did notice within NI Direct the following statement: if a problem of obstruction arises as a result of vehicles parked on a footway, that situation is a matter for and can be dealt with by the PSNI. So the PSNI do have powers to act. So whilst I agree that we need the Think Before You Park campaign, you know, I also feel that we need the stick and carrot approach. That where there is repeated elements of obstruction, as has been highlighted by Alderman Devaney, for example, the police should be acting, and you know, it's their duty to act. So I think we need to write to them to ensure that they act if a problem, particularly a repeating problem, occurs of that nature. And can I fully support Councillor Michaela Boyle in what she said about disabled parking? It's a pet hit of my own. In fact, my late mother, if she spied somebody doing it, she was over and she gave it to them. Believe me, my mother could do that. So, it's absolutely despicable when you see somebody pulling into a disabled parking bay, hopping out and running somewhere. Absolutely despicable. Happy to support the motion as such, but I trust that members can understand the rationale behind the amendment. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Hussey. Okay, members, we have an amendment on here. Councillor Alderman Corrigan, do you want to speak on the amendment?
Just very briefly, Mayor. Just very briefly. I'm content enough with Alderman Hussey's amendment there. As I say, it's one of those situations. We all know the areas, and to be fair, we are all guilty of doing it. You're thinking that the rationale. Sometimes you think, well, I pulled in, I'm off the road a wee bit here. I'm not trying to block the road, but yet you're blocking pedestrians. And again, as Councillor Barr stated, where the vast majority of us are guilty of that one there. But again, it's twofold there that I see. And again, as has been mentioned, we have supported, as fellow councillors there have called upon additional disabled car parking spaces there. And again, I know my colleague Alderman Devaney did bring forward that we would try to allow more free parking in the council area for disabled users. And it wasn't accepted by council. But we are seeking to support those with disabilities. But again, as has been mentioned there earlier in the meeting, and Alderman Hussey raised it, and fellow Dare councillors know it. Newton Stewart's an example whereby there's a lack of car parking, and that is one of the things the traders have looked about, is getting additional car parking, because then there are people that are just abandoning the car a wee bit here or there, and so it's a mixed bag. It's not just a one size will fit all here. So no, just to support the motion, thank Councillor Barr for bringing it, and to support Alderman Hussey's amendment as well. Thank you very much, Chair. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Alderman Corrigan. Okay, members, we have an amendment on the screen here. Members, I'm going to take this one to a vote. Members, anybody? I don't hear any dissenting voices yet. Anybody looking to abstain or go against the amendment on the screen? Could you let me know now? Okay, members, the amendment passes unanimous. Going back to the substantial motion now. Is there any members looking to come on that? Okay, Councillor Stephen Barr, do you want to sum up?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, members, for supporting this motion. I am content with the amendment, Mayor. I think it is a reasonable ask. Where there is a problem, then let the PSNI intervene. And this is a reality, really. Pavements are for people to walk on. And yes, we need to educate drivers to respect pedestrians and their safety. If all this falls to change behavior, then enforcement action may be required further down the line. And I agree, the think before you park campaign needs to be highlighted more. This is why the second ask of this motion is for council to write to DFI to obtain relevant literature that could be made available in council premises and also in public spaces. In closing, Mayor, pavement services are not designed to carry the weight of vehicles, and the added maintenance cost of repairing cracks and damages paving adds to unnecessary financial burden. And I'm delighted that every member here has acknowledged the dangers of parking in pavements and footpaths. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Members, so on the substantial motion, I'm not hearing any dissenting voice in this. So is there anybody looking to abstain or go against? Could you let me know now on the chat box? Okay, members, that substantial motion passes unanimous. Okay, moving on to the next motion. Councillor Duffy's.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll wait for a seconder.
I'll second that, Michaela.
Thank you, Michaela.
Okay, go ahead.
The motion's there, so I'll go ahead and speak to it. The DUP's refusal to re-enter the executive and to effectively block the restoration of the Assembly by refusing to vote for a speaker is completely unacceptable. And it is particularly outrageous when our people are facing a spiralling cost of living crisis, when our health and social care system is on its knees, and when we are still recovering from the devastating social and economic impact of a global pandemic, while also dealing with the legacy of a toxic Tory DUP Brexit. In the Assembly election 3 weeks ago, people voted to make politics work, to invest an extra billion in our health service, and for an executive to put money in their pockets to help deal with the cost of living crisis. There's 420 million available to the executive, which could and should be used to help ordinary workers, families and individuals. The DUP is blocking that. The DUP is blocking 1 billion for the health service. They are holding our entire society to ransom. We need an executive up and running now. Our people expect it. People should not have to wait a day longer. They expect all parties to get back to work. They expect progress on the key issues of healthcare, housing, education and the cost of living. People who are struggling to put food on their table and pay their bills expect urgent action now. Sinn Féin, along with other progressive parties, stand ready to restore the executive immediately. It is only the DUP that stands in the way of that. So I would urge that the other parties here tonight support the motion and give voice to the growing public demand in this city and beyond for the democratic outcome of the election to be respected and an executive restored immediately. Our people expect it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks to Councillor Duffy for bringing this motion, which the SDLP will support. However, we believe that it's a real shame that in this day and age that we have a motion before us that's calling on us, on all of us, to respect the democratic outcome of an election. It's incredible in our view. In my view, one of the best things to come out of Stormont, and one of the very good ideas that the previous executive had to help tackle the issues that our constituents face on a daily basis, was the plan to have a 3-year budget, which would allow the health service to plan for the future. That can't happen now because we don't have an executive. We all know and hear on a daily basis the real struggles that our constituents face. From the cost of living crisis, which is getting worse by the day, the length of waiting lists for healthcare and housing, and the difficulties and the challenges around education, which we've already discussed here briefly today. While the proposer of the motion has identified 2 very serious issues that the people that we represent face, i.e. the cost of living and the extra £1 billion to the health service, the reality is that any new executive have a lot more work to do. There's over 400 million in a Stormont bank account that cannot and will not be spent until an executive is formed. 400 million that can feed children and their families. 400 million that can heat homes. 400 million that will ensure that lights are kept on in those homes. These are the real issues that matter to the people in our community. Mayor, during the recent election campaign, the SDLP canvassed in every area across this council area, from Castledare to Culmore and back again. I could count how many times the protocol was mentioned. I couldn't even hazard a guess at how many times hospital waiting lists or the cost of living was mentioned, or the cost of oil and gas. The reality is that the protocol is holding back support from government for our people. For me, the job of government is to improve the lives of the people that they represent. Sitting outside Stormont or the executive refusing to go in will not improve the lives of one single person across the north.
Bring your remarks to a close, please?
Yep. Sitting outside the executive will not improve the lives of one single person across the north. I would urge DUP MLAs to get back into the Assembly, get back into the executive, and to help address the issues that our people are facing. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, members, moving on. Councillor Doyle.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks to Sandra for bringing this motion forward, because I think that it's something that everybody out there wants to see happen. Now we could rehearse all of the arguments previous about, one party brought Stormont down for 3 years, another party has now brought it down. We could get into all of that. But frankly, the matter is, at this point, is that there are people whose kitchens I have sat in over the last number of weeks and long before, who are at their wits' end and who cannot receive support because there is no executive. And to add insult to injury, we send 90 MLAs up the road for the DUP then to decide that there will be no assembly either to give voice to those concerns. I have no problem supporting the motion. I did send a slight amendment in to the committee team, and it's very simple. And it's something that I've been saying for, and my party have been saying for a long time. If you are blocking the formation of an executive or an assembly, you should not be paid. It's as simple as that. Nurses wouldn't get it. Teachers wouldn't get it. People who work in our council wouldn't get it. And there is no political malice behind that. It is a fact that if you're not doing your job, whether you've been in Stormont for 10 years or whether you've been in it for 3 weeks, you should not be getting paid if you are causing the whole system to collapse and expecting people who are on their knees to continue to pay your salary. So I'm quite happy to put that forward. But other than that, fully support the sentiments of the motion, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Doyle, have you a seconder? And Councillor Ferguson second that. Okay, members on the amendment. Councillor Ferguson, do you want to speak on both?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'll speak on both. Mayor, I'm not going to go over the rehearsed lines. I thank Councillor Duffy for bringing this motion forward. I think it's something that needs to happen, and it needs to happen 2 weeks ago. This is where our constituents are suffering because of the lack of an executive, the lack of Stormont. We've returned 17 new MLAs because people want to see this place work, and they want to see their MLAs working for them. Mayor, I'm happy to second Councillor Doyle's amendment because I do believe if you are blocking, doesn't matter what party you're from or what your political views are, if you are blocking the executive and the assembly from forming, then you shouldn't have those salaries. I know a lot of the work goes into constituency, but we have people up that road who are looking to put in legislative changes to make the lives of our constituents better. And unfortunately, for one or another reason, it's not happening. The Assembly, the Executive, it needs reformed. We need to stop the ability for one party to tear it down and one party to stop them from going in. So, Mayor, we are more than happy to support the motion and more than happy to support the amendment. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for that, Councillor Ferguson. Councillor Hargan on both.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, on both we're happy to support the original motion and the amendment. Look, it's as simple as this. The DUP should respect the democratic mandate of the election. Prior to this election, the mandate was respected when they were the biggest party. I think that they have to accept the outcome of this election and end this charade. In our opinion, the DUP looked at the polls a year and a half ago, didn't like them, and spent the next year and a half whipping up tension, meeting with loyalist paramilitaries, and attempting to create chaos here. And the outcome was that people rejected that at the election, and that's why people want change. And we're now in a situation where there is a cost of living crisis that we all know about because we constantly talk about. There's a healthcare crisis, a climate emergency, and people want action in these things. We know that there's 400 million in that Stormont bank account that should have been spent before the executive was collapsed. It should have been, we should be using that money right now. That amount is going to increase, I believe, because of what the Chancellor has done today. And there's more desperate need for it. Look, if Stormont is returned, that programme for government can't be a continuation of what's went on before, where pay cuts were pushed through, where budgets were cut for health. There needs to be radical change. Am I confident that will happen in a new Stormont? No, definitely not. I think we're going to need to see people power movements holding government to account and demanding funding to tackle the cost of living crisis and all the other issues. But on this motion, the DUP should respect the democratic mandate.
Thank you, Councillor Horgan. Alderman Kerrigan, on both?
Yeah, Mayor, I'll come on both. Mayor, it'll come as no surprise, Mayor, that I'm not going to be able to support either the amendment or the motion. Mayor, I see where all the other parties are coming from. I see that. But the DUP stood on a clear platform. They came in and they stood on a clear platform that unless there were amendments to the protocol, unless there was changes to the protocol, that they wouldn't be willing to go in. And I don't know why it's coming as a surprise to everybody that they have stuck to what they stated they were going to do. And anybody just thought, oh no, they didn't mean that, they were just going to go in anyway. I don't know where you are coming from there, because they stated that unless the protocol was dealt with, they wouldn't be going in. And that is the rules of the system that we have to employ up there at Stormont. So, and another wee factor there, I do see, yes, there are issues, there are lots of issues that need to be addressed. And I know the factor is that and I mean, any of yourselves, and I spoke to many of my fellow councillors and Matterfelt at the count, and you all know how hard your candidate worked, or your MLA, if it had been there, has worked in the area. And again, yes, the Stormont end, being up there as a legislative assembly is one thing, but and I know the footfall that comes in through Tom Buchanan's office in West Tyrone, which is my end of the council, and I know the work that goes on there and the work that continues to go on, whether he's up, whether Stormont executive is running or not. The work goes on in those offices, and to try to say that, oh, they're not doing their job, the people that are putting that forward should know better, to be fair. But it's the case there. Another factor is there have been things being done. I mean, I congratulate Minister Robin Swan for 46 million there. And again, I'm looking at it from my end of the council district, Mayor. And Omagh Hospital is my closest hospital. It's not Alton Galvin. That's Omagh Hospital. And
Alderman Kerrigan, could you bring your remarks to a
very
close,
quickly,
please?
Mayor. And so I welcome that he has been able to, in his role as minister, bring forward money there. And Mayor, to think that if the DUP went on tomorrow, all these problems would be resolved, it's just not true. It's not right, Mayor. Thank you very much for allowing me on.
Thank you, Alderman Kerrigan. Alderman Devaney, on both?
Yep, on both, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor, for allowing me in. And look, I have to say, this is Sinn Féin playing politics once again. And, they have some neck on them when they pulled the Assembly down for 3 years, and there were crisis after crisis, and we had to row our way through it. And as I look at the amendment here, to block salaries for MLAs, I know our MLAs have said after a certain length of time that yes, they're happy to take a reduction in salary, but then when I look at Sinn Féin MPs who don't take their seats in Westminster, I don't see any call for them to lose their salary or cut their salaries. And Mayor, look, the Good Friday Agreement has been mentioned so many times. The Good Friday Agreement was set up an agreement to work between Unionists and the Nationalist Republican community. And at this juncture, Unionists are not buying in to the protocol. And as a colleague said, we stood on a mandate that we would not go into share power unless the protocol was sorted out. Now, there's not one Unionist MLA that I know supports the protocol. And I know I have listened to it time and time again, and we have a mandate on that there. We have to sort out the problem. And I do believe, look, the unhelpful opinion of Mr. Neil, the American contingent that has landed here, has really insulted the PUL community. And what they have done, they have came here and they've exacerbated the situation. They've really got the PUL communities back up, and by some of these comments calling them planters. And I think, Mayor, when we look at America at the moment, I think Mr. Neil would need to go back and look after some of the social issues that he has in his own country. When we look about the gun law and we see what has happened, and we see America, how they they dealt with the blacks through the years, and the Indians and the Arapahoes, and he talks about borders. When he looks at his own borders, some of his own borders, and I know he talked about the protocol, if was taken
Thank
away,
you, Alderman Devaney. Could
there
you bring
would
your
be
microphone
army
close,
on the
please?
border. And just want to finish, Mayor, when we look at the borders in America, and Donald Trump said he would build a wall, and some of those borders that are manned night and day. But Mayor, look, as our colleague says, we will not be supporting this because we think it's just plain politics.
Thank
And
you.
as I said, we stood on a mandate and we're standing by that. Thank you, Mayor.
Sorry, Councillor Doyle, you can't sum up on the amendment. Okay, members, I see no further speakers on this amendment, so I'm going to pass to John now for a vote.
Thank you, Mayor. Alderman Breslin,
Against.
Alderman Devaney,
Against, John.
Alderman Guy, Alderman Hussey,
Against.
Alderman Carrigan,
Against, John.
Alderman McCready, Alderman Ramsey,
Against.
Alderman Wark,
Abstain.
Councillor Jason Barr,
For.
Councillor Raymond Barr,
For.
Councillor John Boyle,
For.
Councillor Michaela Boyle,
For.
Councillor Carr, Councillor Cusick,
For.
Councillor Dobbins,
For, John.
Councillor Donnelly, Councillor Doyle,
For.
Councillor Duffy,
For.
Councillor Edwards, Councillor Farrell,
For.
Councillor Ferguson,
For.
Councillor Fleming,
For, John.
Councillor Gallagher, Councillor Harkin,
For.
Councillor Jackson,
For, John.
Councillor Logue,
For.
Councillor McGinley,
For, John.
Councillor McGowan.
For, John.
I'm just recording a 4 for Councillor Edwards there from the chat box. Councillor McHugh, Councillor Mooney,
For.
Councillor Dan Kelly, just picking that up from the chat box. Thank you. Councillor O'Neill,
For.
Councillor Riley,
For.
Councillor Senoy Barr,
For, John.
Councillor Tierney.
For.
Thanks, members. Any other members wish to come in? Okay, thank you. Mayor, 23 for, 5 against, 1 abstention. So the amendment passes.
Thank you, five members. Thank you, John. 2 minutes. Two. Alderman Hussey,
I wish to propose a further amendment.
2 seconds. Okay, have you a seconder?
I'd second it.
Alderman Preston second. Okay, members, there's a amendment on the floor.
Mayor, the amendment, I believe, is self-explanatory, and I don't intend to go into much further discussion on it.
Okay.
There are many other parties who have their concerns about the protocol. Those concerns emanate from the Belfast Good Friday Agreement, with particular regard to the requirements of East-West relationships within that agreement. Unlike quite a few others, in fact, everybody else in this chamber, I was actually there and part of the team that brought the Belfast Agreement into operation at the time of David Trimble and John Hume. So I hope members will agree that I might know a wee bit of what I'm talking about on this. I beg to move the subsequent amendment. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Fred. Alderman Hussey. Councillor Doyle.
Thanks, Mayor. I unsurprisingly don't support this amendment. And when we're talking about, I think there's a lot of confusion, and it's deliberate on behalf of unionism around the protocol. And I'm not directing that at Alderman Hussey at all. But let's talk about what Strand 3 of the Good Friday Agreement actually referred to. It was about issues and institutions between Ireland and Britain, the British-Irish Intergovernmental Conference, the British-Irish Council, and the interparliamentary body. It doesn't refer in any way to anything that would touch on trade or anything along those lines, because, of course, from an EU member state perspective, those are held by those member states. So, I mean, this idea that the protocol in some way makes someone who feels that they are British less British, or that in some way demonizes the relationship between this country and the UK is nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. And I listened intently to what Councillor Tierney said with regard to the election campaign, and he's absolutely right. When we went across this city and district as well during the assembly campaign, not even in unionist areas did anybody talk to us about the protocol, because I think for a fact that some of the unionist parties are intent on befuddling the unionist electorate as to what the protocol is actually about. And I think that was evident in the result of the overall election. What this comes down to is that the UK government and the European Union made an agreement. If unionists are unhappy with that, it should lie at 10 Downing Street. At the end of the day, we have to remember that the DUP were the party who kept the Tories in power for long enough. If they've got a problem now with what was negotiated, they should bring it to
Councillor
10
Doyle,
Downing
could you
Street,
bring your
because the
remarks to a
people in
close, please?
particular of Ballyarnett
Councillor Doyle.
don't buy what they're trying to sell. Thank you.
Thank you. Don't think you're there. Councillor McGowan.
Thank you, Mayor. Listen, we can't support this amendment. It's very clear, and everyone knows that this doesn't impinge in any way the Good Friday Agreement. Everyone knows that. There was a court case taken by the DEP and many others, which proved this in a court of law. The protocol is an international agreement. It's not covered within the Good Friday Agreement. It's a decision between the British government and the European Union. And in fact, you don't have to get too far back. We were told that specifically by the DEP about Brexit. They clearly stated, the Assembly, and that no devolved assemblies across the United Kingdom would have any say. It was a sovereign decision taken by the British government. So the amendment's flawed. It's wrong. It's completely off kilter. That there is nothing in the protocol which impinges anything within the Good Friday Agreement. The East-West relationship, fine, we can work that out. We can twig the protocol. Everyone's saying that, but it's an international agreement between the British government and the European Union, and is not covered in the Good Friday Agreement. And the highest court in the land said that loudly and clearly to all the people that took the case. So for that reason, we can't support an amendment because it's fundamentally flawed. Thank you.
Councillor Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor, for bringing me in. It'll be no surprise that we couldn't support the amendment either. I honestly struggle to see how it is relatable to the original motion. The amendment talks and reads very much as if it wants to sort out the issues of the protocol, which Councillor McGowan has very clearly outlined, which would be a similar position to ourselves. That's an agreement between the British government and the EU, and that's for them to work through those difficulties. The original motion in my mind, pardon me, Mayor, the original motion in my mind was about trying to sort out and devolved institution here in the north and try and make sure that it was set up again to protect people and to see people through the very, very difficult challenges that they're facing. But the reality is that the protocol, now let me be clear, we don't want the protocol either. We didn't want Brexit. We wanted to remain within the European Union. But the protocol is the best, worst case scenario. And that has been outlined by people a lot more politically involved than me and probably a lot more intelligent than me. And that's where we have to try and make sure that we are giving ourselves here, particularly in Derry and Strabane, the best opportunity with the advantages that I think that the protocol can bring. For those reasons, Mayor, we will not be supporting this amendment from Alderman Hussey. The protocol was, I suppose, an appeasement to the DUP, in my view. And we wouldn't have had a protocol if they had supported Theresa May's soft Brexit. They didn't do that, and they claimed that Boris Johnson was going to come on a white horse and protect everybody. He hasn't. He's thrown them under the bus. In my view, he's preparing to throw them back under the bus again. And this amendment isn't going to change that. We'll not be supporting it. We can't support it. And we'll be hopefully supporting the original motion when it comes back on the floor. Thank you.
Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Mayor. And with greatest respect to Alderman Hussey, I know he's trying to find a middle ground here, but this motion to me was about making sure that our assembly is back up and running, making that message very clear. And where I won't say, like others, that the protocol didn't come up in the doors, it did within some of our canvassing, but it was around how do we protect that? How do we make it work for Northern Ireland the best? I agree the protocol is not the best thing. The best thing was to stay in the EU or Theresa May's deal. Unfortunately, we don't have those. We have the protocol, and where we have to find solutions to the problems, that solution has to be found between the UK and the EU, and not at the holding our executive to ransom over the head of it. So come round the table, absolutely, let's find solutions. There's 4 out of 5 parties in the main executive that I can hear are looking at possible solutions in which that we can move forward. And if we had that strong voice advocating together, then maybe we would actually, but at this moment in time, it's not working out. So I don't want to support this amendment because I think the message needs to be clear. No matter what the issue, no matter what the political interest in it, we need the executive, we need the devolved government here working for the people of Northern Ireland. We cannot hold it hostage for issues that are outside of our domain. So, Mayor, I won't be supporting the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. Alderman Devaney.
Thank you, Mayor, for allowing me in, and our party has no problem in supporting the amendment here. I think it's very, very sensible one when we look at East-West relations, because that is now cut off. But, you know, I do listen to Sinn Féin, and it's good to see now that they recognise the courts, because, you know, there were many years that they didn't recognise the court or the rule of law here in Northern Ireland. And it's good to see here the SDLP said, look, they don't like the protocol either. But, you know, at the end of the day, we are in the early stages. We're in the introductory stages of the protocol, and wait until the protocol is fully implemented till we see the severe impact on our businesses across Northern Ireland. And that's when the full impact of the protocol will be seen. But as I said earlier on, Mayor, look, the Good Friday Agreement was built on the stalwarts of relationships between Unionists and Nationalists and Republicans, and Unionists are not supporting the protocol at the not supporting the protocol. And we stood in that mandate. We got a mandate to stand there. And, you know, when we see it fully implemented, I will listen with interest to the SDLP, Sinn Féin and Alliance, who wanted the protocol fully implemented. And, you know, they will recognise sometime that there are businesses out there suffering severely. But, Chair, we're happy to support the amendment.
Okay, members, we have an amendment. I'm going to pass now. I see no further speakers on this amendment. I'm going to pass now to John to take us through a vote. John?
Thanks, Mayor. Alderman President?
For.
Alderman Devaney?
For.
Alderman Hussey?
For.
Alderman Carrigan?
For, John.
Alderman Ramsey?
For.
Alderman Wark?
For.
Councillor Jason Barr?
Against.
Councillor Raymond Barr?
Against.
Councillor John Boyle?
Against.
Councillor Michaela Boyle?
Against.
Councillor Cusick?
Against.
Councillor Dobbins?
Against, John.
Councillor Doyle?
Against.
Councillor Duffy?
Against.
Councillor Edwards?
Against.
Councillor Farrell?
Against.
Councillor Ferguson?
Against.
Councillor Fleming?
Against, John.
Councillor Harkin?
Against.
Sorry, say again there, Councillor Harkin?
Against.
Councillor Jackson?
Against.
Councillor Kelly?
Against.
Councillor Logue?
Against.
Councillor McGinley?
Against, John.
Councillor McGowan?
Against.
Councillor Rooney?
Against.
Councillor O'Neill?
Against.
Councillor Riley?
Against.
Councillor Sinery Barr? Councillor Tierney?
Against, John.
Against, John. Councillor Tierney.
Thank you.
Against, John. Councillor Senoi Barr.
Thank you. Any other members wish to come in? Thank you. Mayor, I've recorded 6 for and 23 against, so the amendment falls.
Okay, members, that amendment falls. Moving back now to substantial motion, and Councillor Curry, is this on the substantial motion?
Mayor, no, that's all right. It was going to be, that's all right. Let it go, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Members, I see no further speakers on that, so I'm going to bring in Councillor Duffy now to
Chair,
close it off.
just to say we will be against this, Chair. I think there needs to be a vote, or the EP party will not be supporting this.
Morris, I think I get to sum up first.
Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Duffy.
Yeah.
You're not making any difference with your summing of us.
Yeah. Thank
Order,
you.
order, members, order. Councillor, members, could you just make sure you just make off? Councillor Duffy, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and I would like to thank the people who have supported the motion and will vote for the motion when we get to the vote. I have to say it's rich, the DUP talking about playing politics. I think there's a bit of a brass neck going on there. And just for Morris's information, Sinn Féin MPs don't take a salary from Westminster. And I would also like to point out to Morris, he would really need to mind his language. He made quite a racist comment there when he was speaking. He probably didn't even notice, but other people have noticed. And I would ask him to again rewatch this and listen to what he said, because what he said was most definitely racist. In terms of the motion and where we're at with that, the protocol hasn't featured in any door that I have been at. over the last number of months. But what has featured is the health service, what has featured is the cost of living. We have passed a motion here earlier tonight in terms of Bluegrave Primary School. We have been talking about going to the Education Minister. The DUP voted for the motion, but yet we have no Education Minister, or no meaningful Education Minister at least. We have discussed the cost of living and mitigations that can't be actioned because there is no executive up and running. The DUP come in here and speak with a forked tongue in terms of supporting that, but yet won't get into the executive where we have the ability to get 400 million out and into people's pockets. I mean, that isn't lost on people, and it's not lost on your own voters either, I would imagine. I would appeal to the DUP tonight to listen to what's being said, show up on Monday at the recall of the Assembly, nominate a Speaker, nominate a Deputy First Minister, and nominate ministers, and let's get on with the job. We're going to turn up. Other parties are going to turn up. I would appeal to the DUP to do the same. Turn up and let's get money out and into people's pockets. Let's get £1 billion invested into the health service that is badly needed. There is not one person in any community, orange or green, that is not in need of the health service reformed. So I would ask the DUP to rethink their position. The protocol, I'm not hearing at the doors, and I would ask you to get back into the Assembly and let's sort out the cost of living crisis in the health service.
Thank
that we
you,
have the
Councillor
ability to do.
Duffy. Could you bring your remarks to? Okay, members, I'm going to pass now to John to take us through a vote. John?
Alderman Breslin,
Against.
Alderman Devaney,
Against.
Alderman Hussey,
Abstain.
Alderman Carrigan,
Against, John.
Alderman Ramsey,
Against.
Alderman Wark,
Abstain.
Councillor Jason Barr,
For.
Councillor Raymond Barr,
For.
Councillor John Boyle,
For.
Councillor Michaela Boyle,
For.
Councillor Cusick,
For.
Councillor Dobbins,
For, John.
Councillor Doyle,
For.
Councillor Duffy,
For.
Councillor Edwards,
For.
Councillor Farrell,
For.
Councillor Ferguson,
For, John.
Councillor Fleming,
For, John.
Councillor Harkin,
For.
Councillor Jackson,
For.
Councillor Kelly,
For, John.
Councillor Logue,
For.
Councillor McGinley,
For, John.
Councillor McGowan,
For, John.
Councillor Mooney,
For, John.
Councillor O'Neill,
For.
Councillor Riley,
For.
Councillor Stephen Barr, Councillor Tierney.
For.
Thank you.
John. For.
Thank you. Thank you. Mayor, 23 for, 4 against, 2 abstentions, so the motion passes.
Okay, thank you, John.
Mayor, on a point of order.
Yeah, go ahead there, Councillor Doyle.
Mayor, I think what Councillor Duffy had referred to and what Councillor McGowan and myself have referred to in the chat box needs to be addressed right now by this meeting. There was a derogatory, I believe, term used by Alderman Devaney when he referred to African Americans in the US. That language is not acceptable, and I think we have to address it here and now and send a very strong message that that type of language is not acceptable from anyone, and especially not an elected representative within this council. So we'd like to hear your ruling on that, and if possible, whilst I have my views on it, that Alderman Devaney be asked to expressly apologise and refute the word that he used. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Doyle. You have made that point there. That's not a point of order. And members, the time is now. I tell you what I'm going to do here. I'm just going to bring Alderman Devaney and go ahead, Alderman Devaney.
No, it's okay, Mayor. It's all right.
Okay, members. The time is now 19:57. We'll be back online at 8:20, members. Thank you.
That go? Did he just let that go?
Okay, members, welcome back to the full council meeting. Just before we took a stop, I give Morris the chance to come on. Morris wants to come on now and speak to members. Alderman Devaney.
Thank you, Mayor, for allowing me in. Look, I have reflected on what has been said, and look, it was an innovative use of language. And look, there is not a racist bone in my body. And at the end of the day, if I have said something that somebody has felt annoyed or felt insulted by, I apologise for that. And it's very unusual that I'm brought to toe for language like this here. But you know, it's never happened to me before. And look, I can only apologise for the use of language, and apologise to those who feel annoyed by it. And that's all I have to say on it, Mayor. Look, I reflected on it there in the break, and I wanted to get in first. And I do reflect, and I do apologise for what I said. And as I say, it was an innovative use of language, and it was never meant to offend anyone or insult anyone. But thank you, Mayor, for allowing me in.
Okay, Alderman Devaney. Okay, members, I'm going to move on now to Councillor Dobbins to move on our motion.
Thank you, Chair, and can I take it as read? And can I just have a wee typo fixed before we move on? I think I have the wrong way around. It should be PCSP, not PSCP.
Yeah, we
All right,
said
thank you.
No, that's fine. Before you just start there, Councillor Dobbins, could I have a seconder, please?
I'll second it, Brian Tierney.
Thank you, Councillor Tierney. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Members, it's every parent's worst nightmare saying see you later to your son or daughter as they go out for a night out, and the knocking at your door in the early hours is not because they have forgotten their key. It's the police with devastating news that they'll never turn the key in the door again. One woman, Lynn Baird, who tragically lost her son to knife crime on such a night out, bravely turned this negative into a positive, setting up a charitable foundation aptly named after her son, Daniel Baird. Daniel died shortly after arriving in hospital due to catastrophic bleeding, but could have been saved if publicly accessible bleeding control first aid had been available and administered. I am not suggesting in any way that this council area is high in knife crime, but there are many other ways for a catastrophic bleed to occur, such as from a car accident or a work-related injury. I believe that having publicly accessible bleeding control packs in all major shopping centres, pubs, clubs, public transport stations, community facilities, etc., is vital to provide the necessary first aid to reduce blood loss until a professional medical help arrives. For the cost of a kit, a life could be saved and a family member spared lifelong grief, knowing that their loved one could have perhaps survived. A bleed control kit is a small injury pack, something similar to the defibrillator kits that we have around our city. It contains specialist dressings and tourniquet instructions and other specialised medical supplies designed to stop and control severe bleeding. I am not going to flood you with statistics, but according to the British Medical Journal, and I quote, failure to start appropriate early management in patients with traumatic bleeding is a leading cause of preventable death from trauma. Knife crime or bleed trauma in Northern Ireland 2021 resulted in 7 deaths and 23 attempted murders. Now, 7 deaths is not a high number, but that's the way we would like it to stay. Through her tireless campaign and lobbying all councillors throughout the mainland, Lynn Baird had successfully got bleed control kits installed in every major city, town and borough throughout England. It's now starting as well in Scotland. Schools have also taken up the mantle and have included basic first aid, including bleed control and other basic life support within their curriculums. I am asking members to support and approve this motion so that Derry City and Strabane District Council will be the first in Northern Ireland to lead the way. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Okay, members, Alderman Corrigan.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, I'm just putting forward, well, a very slight amendment, if that's all right. Now, it's whatever you think yourself. Just the case of where Councillor Dobbins has stated, and in conjunction with the PCSP, the City Centre Initiative, I would have been minded we included a Northern Ireland Ambulance Service. Would be my wee amendment. Fully support Councillor Dobbins' motion. Mayor, sorry, maybe you want a seconder for that?
Happy to second it.
Thank you, Maeve.
Go ahead there.
Sorry, fully support the motion brought forward by Councillor Dobbins, and I'll be fair, I wasn't sure of the Daniel Baird Foundation until Councillor Dobbins had raised it in her motion, and when I looked into it, and I see the good work that's done there. But yes, I mean, it is a thing. Fully supported, and again, I brought forward a motion and was supported by a council there in regards to the AEDs, and I would be minded. That's why I'm bringing that in, because I think where there is an AED, the like of that as well, that's a start as well. Having these bleed kits there in the same location where there's AEDs as well. So and that's why, just to get that incorporated, and hopefully then if the ambulance service then can try to push this, because the stated that first aid training, because it's the people bleeding out and they don't get a chance. And given particularly, I know it's mentioned there in regards to it's touched on upon here, and in regards to what happened to Daniel, was a stabbing incident, but there are many incidents whereby people in the rural area where someone's had an accident. They've had an accident, maybe I know of a man a number of years ago, an accident with a chainsaw, and there was nothing could be done. He couldn't be got quick enough to anywhere to try to save his life. So those things happen, and many incidents can happen on farms and rural locations. So that's why, as I say, Mayor, fully support Councillor Dobbins' motion. Thank her for bringing it. And as I say, I think that wee bit by touching on incorporating the ambulance service will hopefully strengthen it, and hopefully they can try and assist. And if we could get that additional training in your and the first aid training, that would be first class. So no, thank Councillor Dobbins for it, and we will be supporting it. Thank you, Mayor, and thank Maeve as well for seconding my amendment.
Thank you, fellow Alderman Corrigan. Councillor Fleming, do you want to speak on the amendment on both?
Could cover both, Mayor, thanking you, and on behalf of excuse me, on behalf of Sinn Féin, I thank you to Councillor Dobbins both for her motion and her articulation. And we also empathise with the family of tragically lost their son, Daniel, 5 years ago in terms of a knife crime. And from their point of view, and again, as Angela has articulated, a bleed control kit can save a life. And we also applaud the family of Daniel through the foundation for their work, their tireless work in regards to bringing the message in terms of blood control kits, not just in their home city of Birmingham, but across other parts of England, Scotland, and now hopefully here as well. And we had the examples of our own tragedies in terms of and the rollout of defibrillators across city and district, and obviously across other parts as well. And so therefore this can be done, and we would support the motion that it should be done in the context of as is laid out, and hopefully it can avert tragedies. So we support the motion and the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fleming. Councillor O'Neill on the amendment.
Yeah, just on the amendment and the motion, Mayor, thank you. Thanks to Councillor Dobbins for bringing this really important issue and motion forward. And to Alderman Kerrigan, I totally agree with the amendment. I was thinking of suggesting it myself. So I think it just adds to the motion. Again, I think which helps to prevent the loss of life is very, very welcome. I think there's really been excellent work done around AEDs, raising awareness that they exist in our local communities and their effectiveness in their proper use, like, you know, in a timely manner. And I think if we utilize, you know, these bleed control kits in a similar way and raise awareness of them, because, you know, it's really important that people know that they exist and know how to work them. And if similar work is done with bleed control kits as has been done with AEDs, I think it'll be very, very beneficial for the local community, particularly in rural communities when ambulance wait times and distance from hospitals is much greater, and particularly at a time when there is a crisis in the ambulance service, unfortunately, where reaction times, you know, aren't where we want them to be. And, you know, so I think having these sorts of resources in local communities and rural communities and city centres, I think is very, very welcome, because, you know, even if we save one life with it, it's completely worth it. So thanks to Councillor Dobbins for bringing the motion. Thanks.
Thank you. And Councillor Ferguson on the amendment.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll speak on both. I just want to say a huge thanks to Councillor Dobbins for bringing this motion forward. I think it is a perfect motion for something that we in Council can try and action, and something that, you know, is a small kit that could save many, many lives. I want to thank Alderman Kerrigan also for adding the amendment for Northern Ireland. We're more than happy, ambulance service, more than happy to support the amendment. I think even as a mother and trying to think of the possibilities of this happening, you know, it's heartbreaking. It's absolutely heartbreaking. But to put that sheer grief into a campaign like this and try and raise awareness, and for something so positive to come out of it, it's something that the Bird family should be really, really proud of. So, no, we in Alliance are more than happy to support this motion and look forward to being the first place in Northern Ireland to have these kits available. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, members. Okay, members, I see no further speakers on the amendment, so I don't see any dissenting voices here. So anybody looking to abstain or go against the amendment, could you let me know now, or let me know in the chat box, please? Okay, members, the amendment passes. Moving back now to substantial motion. Members, is there anybody want to speak on that? Okay, I'm going to bring Councillor Dobbins now to close it down.
Thank you, Mayor. And I wish to thank all the members for their support and getting this through. And just like the motion that I myself moved within the former Derry City Council, and that was 9 years ago, promoting the instalment of defibrillators within the city. I am confident that this council will once again lead the charge and within this province in saving lives of its citizens. Thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you for that, Councillor Dobbins. Okay, members, on the substantial motion, I'm not hearing any dissenting voices throughout all the members. Anybody looking to abstain or go against this, could you let me know now on the chat box? Okay, members, the substantial motions from Councillor Dobbins passes unanimous. Moving on, members, to Councillor McGinley. Just 2 seconds, Councillor McGinley, until we get this up on the screen. There we go.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll take the motion as read, if that's all right.
Yeah, have we a seconder, members?
I'll second it, Mayor.
Thank you.
Councillor Logue.
Thank you, Councillor Logue. Go ahead.
Thank you, Patricia. So just on this motion, I feel it's pertinent to raise this issue today because over recent times, we've seen a massive increase in demands for assistance with Irish passport applications. And I'm sure that's not just Sinn Féin representatives and offices. I would dare say that that's across the board. And that's not just with helping to complete the applications or to witness and sign the consent forms, but also making representations to the Irish Passport Office for applications that have been delayed. Whilst it is widely accepted that the online simple adult renewals are efficient and the Passport Office should be commended for those, the first time applications and children's applications, there's a serious delay and it's causing untold stress and anxiety for those that are applying who have done so in the belief that they've given enough time for their applications to be processed before their travel is planned. Since the Brexit vote, we have seen a massive surge in applications for Irish passports from the north. Given the unique position that we have here in the north, that gives us the right to identify as Irish or British or indeed both. So many across all communities are availing of this right and are applying for Irish passports, and all those people deserve an efficient and timely service. Waiting over 5 months for a passport is not acceptable. I've had a family who did get away on holidays this week, but had applied in the first week of January. And with a massive push to get that through, we got the passport in time, but it wasn't without great difficulty. So it's my belief that an Irish passport office in the north would help to ease pressure on current offices that are in Dublin and in Cork, and will make the service, even for like emergency appointments, much more accessible for citizens in the north and indeed across the northwest region of Ireland. In 2018, this council passed a motion proposed by my party colleague Kelly at the time, calling for an Irish passport office in the north. At present, over 25,000 people have signed my party colleague Senator Niall O'Donoghue's petition, making the same call, and Niall has been making that call within the Shannon as well as our TDs making it within the Dáil. In March 2022, so March of this year, there was 13,026 Irish passport applications that were submitted from the 6 counties. And in May this year, the figures are showing that more Irish passport applications were submitted from the north than there was for British applications. So the need and the demand is there. It's time that the Irish government stepped up to the mark in delivering for its citizens in all parts of this island. In 2017, Leo Varadkar, the then Taoiseach, said that no government will ever leave the north behind again. So now it's time for Fine Gael, who hold the department under the ministry of Simon Coveney, to make good on this commitment and establish an Irish passport service that serves all the people of the north and gives them the service that they deserve.
Thank you, Fat. Councillor Farrell?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. We in the SDLP are in partial agreement with this motion. We obviously have serious concerns about the delays right across the passport service. We agree that there should be an Irish passport office here in the north, but we're going to be more specific and say that it should be located here in this city in Derry. Belfast has its UK passport office, and Derry should have its own Irish passport office. And my colleague, Mark Hitz-Durkin, has already written to Simon Coveney in this regard, and we feel that the backing of this council would add further weight to that very legitimate request. Passport services are under extreme pressure, and establishing an office here in the north would help manage the current and future demand. And these pressures have resulted in people contacting elected reps right across the north requesting passport prioritisations. And unfortunately, there's no existing or apparent process for this. So we feel there should be a hotline direct to the passport service that allows elected reps from right across the north to make representations on behalf of our constituents. So we support the spirit of the motion, but we have a minor amendment, namely that Derry is the location for an Irish passport office in the north, and that we as elected reps have a dedicated direct line right into the heart of the passport service to assist with queries. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Coach Farrell, could you get that in the chat box and could have a seconder on that?
Brian Tierney.
Councillor Tierney. Just 2 seconds till we get this up on the screen. Okay, members, the amendments up there now. Just 2 seconds. We get that smaller. There we go, all members see that. Okay, members, 2 seconds. I think it's Councillor Doyle's up next, just 2 seconds. I'll move to the chat box here. Councillor Doyle, do you want to speak on the amendment?
On both, just Mayor, please.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks. Thanks, Councillor McGinley for bringing the motion and Councillor Farrell for the amendment, which I have no issue with. I think it's fair to say that we've all been inundated with calls over the last while, particularly with relation to child and first applicants, passport applications for Irish passports. I know that I've had to pass many of them to my colleagues and party leader, Patrick Tabine TD, to try and get some sort of movement on many of them. And unfortunately, last week I had to, because the passport office weren't forthcoming, a constituent of mine from Craigan actually had to go to Dublin to try and pick up a passport because there was no progress being made that we could identify. And I know that's the same right across offices and political parties. It's definitely pertinent. I think now that not only since Brexit, but certainly since the worst of the pandemic has passed us, that people want to get away, and trying to facilitate them with what I'm assuming is a fairly small team in the passport service dealing with new applications is something that definitely needs to be addressed. And I'm fully behind the campaign to have an office in the north and certainly in Derry. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for that, Councillor Doyle. Councillor O'Neill?
Thanks, Mayor, and happy to speak to the amendment and the
Good,
as a
thank
whole.
you.
Yeah, people before profit support the motion and the amendment. I think it will be a very, very positive move for passport office to be established in Derry, and I think it would send a strong, a strong message of support, that would enable people, to access passports and passport support here. And I think there really needs to be an investment in services that support people. And I think, we've seen the loss of our electoral office here, which was a massive blow. We've seen the real consequences of that for people, particularly who, aren't maybe computer savvy or who struggle with applications. And I think, for many people, that's the case when it comes to passports also. And we really need to fight for every service, that we get here in the Northwest. And the stress that the current weights are on passports are taken on people is really just not good enough. This is an essential service, and thing it shouldn't be taken 6 months for this to be processed. So I think it would be very, very positive if an Irish passport office was located in Derry. And I think it would really, be an investment under the northwest of Ireland. And we're happy to support the motion. Thanks.
Thank you for that, Councillor O'Neill. Councillor Rachel Ferguson, do you want to speak on both?
Absolutely, Mayor. Thank you. I want to thank Councillor McGinley for bringing this motion forward. I'm more than happy to support the motion and the amendment. I think this is something that she is right in saying. Every single political rep has had a call and demand for Irish passports, and to have it here in the city would be great. I personally think we should still have the electoral office, because another one is electoral IDs, where people are struggling to get their IDs. I have a number of constituents who've come to me, and they've been sitting since January for their children's passports. And because they are able to access dual passports, they have also tried to get emergency passports from Belfast, the UK passport, but there is no emergency appointments left because the demand is so high. So to have that extra office would take the demand not only off the Irish passport applications, but also off the UK passport applications. I have one father who flew out on Monday from here to get to Liverpool to get an emergency appointment to get his children's passports, because people have been waiting nearly 6 months for those passports, and I think it is beyond a joke. So more than happy to support the motion and the amendment, because I think it will show that there is a need for an office here in the north and here in our city. And there's also, you know, the ability that our citizens can apply for dual citizenship or either or. So happy to support, Mayor.
Thank you for that there, Councillor Ferguson. Alderman Ramsey, do you want to speak on both?
Just well, the motion itself, I mean, we won't be supporting it, but
Is this the amendment?
The amendment and the motion, to be honest. But basically, as it stands, you know, there is an increased demand all over the world actually for passports at the minute. A lot has to do with COVID. I know the UK passport offices, the turnaround has become ridiculous. Now, Simon Coveney, obviously, we're probably be writing to him after this, even though we're going against it because we know what the letter is going to be stating when it comes back, because that's realistically what we're doing. We're getting a letter back. And Simon Coveney will be clear about it because the online currently Irish passport turnaround is 30 days, and that's a new passport. Now that's very good. That's very, very good, considering that a written passport application is 8 weeks. So you're going to open an office in Londonderry that's going to actually increase your time to get a passport. So because online is a lot quicker, and obviously online you don't need an office because it's all done from a central base, which is probably somewhere in Dublin. So I would say that Simon Coveney is pretty happy with the turnaround of passports compared to the UK. UK, I think there's 50 million or so at the moment passports being processed, British passports, and they're struggling big time. There's massive delays, and the Irish government are not having the same issues at all. So you'll be getting a letter back. It'll be quite clear that keep applying online. We'll turn it around 30 days. Renewals are only 15 days. So, you know, send a letter, but we'll not be supporting the motion simply because it's a waste of time, because online, the turnaround is fantastic compared to probably most countries in the world. So that's basically all I have to say on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fred Alderman. Ramsey, okay, members, there's amendment. I see no further speakers on the amendment here. I'm going to pass to John here. They take us through a vote. John?
Mayor? Alderman Breslin?
Against.
Alderman Devaney?
Against.
Alderman Guy? Alderman Hussey? Alderman Carrigan?
Against, John.
Alderman Ramsey?
Against.
Alderman Wark?
Yes.
Councillor Jason Barr?
Or.
Councillor Raymond Barr?
Or.
Councillor John Boyle?
Or.
Councillor Michaela Boyle?
For, John.
Councillor Cusick?
For.
Councillor Dobbins?
For, John.
Councillor Doyle?
For.
Councillor Duffy?
For.
Councillor Edwards? Councillor Farrell?
Or.
Councillor Ferguson?
For, John.
Councillor Fleming?
For, John.
Councillor Harkin?
For.
Councillor Jackson?
For, John.
Councillor Kelly?
For.
Councillor Logue?
For, John.
Councillor McGinley?
For, John.
Councillor McGowan?
For, John.
Councillor McHugh? Councillor...
Sorry, Rory's left the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Mooney?
For, John.
Councillor O'Neill?
For.
Councillor Riley?
For.
Councillor Scenery Barr? Councillor
For, John.
Tierney? Thank you. Councillor Tierney?
For, John.
Thank you. Any other members?
For John, if you didn't hear me.
I have you
Yeah,
there.
we got it.
Thank you. Mayor, I have recorded 22 for and 5 against, so the amendment passes.
Thank you, members. Thank you, John. So that amendment passes. Moving back now to substantial motion from Councillor McGinley. Does anybody want to speak on the substantial motion? If not, I'm going to pass the Councillor McGinley to sum up. Okay, Councillor McGinley.
Mayor, and thank you to everybody that spoke in relation to the motion, particularly those that spoke in favour. Just to reference Councillor Farrell's amendment, we weren't being particular about it being in Derry, as long as we can get the demand met. We're quite happy for it to be in the north to serve the whole of the northwest. So absolutely no issue with being in Derry. In fact, I'd be delighted if it was. In terms of what Councillor Alderman Ramsey said there, the 30-day turnaround is what they say on the website is expected. It's not the actual turnaround time. Yes, the online renewals are quicker, but for first time and child first time applications, there is a massive delay. I'm dealing with cases at the minute that are sitting, they've applied on the 10th of January and they still have not received. So I don't know if you can count to 30 working days from the end of now, but it's well surpassed at this stage. So it's just in relation to that, that's just an untruth. And I know someone who had to travel to London to get an emergency British passport in order to be able to travel as well. So the demand is there, the need is there. You might think it's a waste of time, but a lot of us don't. And that's why we've brought this motion forward. So again, thank you to everyone who has spoken support and those who will vote in favour. And I am hopeful to see this pass at this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McGinley. Okay, members. Is there any member going to change the way they voted from the amendment on the substantial motion? Let me know now.
Same. Mayor, we will just be voting the same against, Mayor, just to let you know. So
yeah, I don't see anybody from differentness, members. So just one more chance. So everybody's going to be voting the same. So if that's the case, on the substantial motion, I'm going to pass that. Thank you. Okay, members. Hold on, Councillor McGinley. Moving on to Councillor O'Neill's motion.
Thanks, Mayor. Can I take the motion as read?
Yeah, and can we have a seconder, members?
Happy to second, Mayor Rachel.
Councillor Ferguson, second. Go ahead there, Councillor O'Neill.
Thanks, Mayor. So I think this motion and proposal can be applicable to like all the parks throughout our council district, and I think it has relevance also to Councillor McKenna's motion, which wasn't heard tonight, around accessibility to our parks for people with prams, wheelchairs, and extra ambulatory needs. But just to kind of firstly explain the access to Brook Park from Marlborough Road crossing Craigenhill or vice versa. There's no joined up drop curbs for people, and it's on a hill. It's a busy road, and because it's on a hill, to walk up to the top of it or walk down to the bottom of it to cross at a safer place, it's just not practical. It's just not going to happen. And many children and families and people of all ages access this park. Council have invested lots into it, and it's really, really a brilliant community resource. There's been many concerns raised by local residents, and I've also spoken to the local primary school, Rosemount Primary School, who also access this park, and also navigate this crossing on a daily basis. Many of the families there. And there's lots of concerns just around the safe access, particularly at that junction. And if anybody has ever tried to cross that with a pram and a toddler, or even a toddler on a bike, you're really taking.
Sorry, Councillor O'Neill. Alderman Preston, would you make sure your mic's off, please? Sorry, Councillor O'Neill, go ahead.
No worries. I'm just saying you're really taking a risk every time you cross. And then, so that's the road safety issue. But like, you know, as well as that, we do need to think about air quality. And we've discussed air quality multiple times and we've had motions on air quality. However, you know, I think looking at Brook Park or the surrounding area and Bull Park as well, where we've seen, you know, the monitoring of air quality raising a lot of concerns, particularly around PM 2.5, where breached recommended levels before the air quality monitor was moved. And I think, you know, when we think about air quality, we need to primarily think about our children and babies and prams, because they're at the height whereby they're most vulnerable to fumes from cars. And like, you know, so when we think about air quality for like children accessing schools and parks, it's actually really important, because, you know, if you know, children are most vulnerable to it, children's respiratory health is then most vulnerable to it, and we really need to make, you know, not the surrounding areas of our schools and parks much safer when it comes to air quality, so that people aren't vulnerable to it. And I think council have a responsibility to bring all of the authorities together alongside the local community to like properly look at this issue and look at how to improve it, you know, both in the short-term solutions like such as drop curbs, but also looking at the long-term solutions that might need to be really explored and collaborated on and invested in to properly on a long-term basis address the issue. So hopefully we can get support for this motion. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you for that, Councillor O'Neill. Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for Councillor O'Neill for bringing this motion forward. We are more than happy to support the motion. I completely agree with what Maeve is saying. I have seen so many times drop curbs on alternate sides of the roads, which is no good to anybody, whether they're in a wheelchair, whether in a pram, or whether on a bike. I think DFI have to do an audit because of the previous motion that we spoke on with Councillor Sione Barr, where it creates an independence, a confidence for someone to be able to walk and use these ways to parks or to safe places like our schools. So more than happy that Councillor Philip McKinney unfortunately was sick, but he did want to raise accessibility within our own services. I know, for example, and thanks to Colin Kennedy and his team, the speed ramps in St. Collins Park was stopping people being able to get across because in a wheelchair, so they had to be moved across, and that's why things like this motion is a great way to raise to the likes of our statutory partners in DFI. And the second part of the motion, when it comes to air quality, I think Maeve has raised some really important points. You know, air quality is just as important to our residents and our citizens of the city as much as safety whenever they're on the pavement or whether they're crossing roads. It's something that we do have to tackle, and especially around the Brick Park area. It's something that we need to work with the statutory agencies to make sure that it is improved in any way that we can. So, Mayor, we're more than happy to support the motion and thank Councillor O'Neill for the motion, and hopefully hopefully next month we'll be able to bring Councillor McKinney's motion forward. Thank you.
Thank you for Councillor Ferguson. Councillor Doyle.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks to me for bringing the motion forward. It's certainly a pertinent one right across the city, and you know, in particular, there's been a bit of a mess made in some of the pedestrian access to Ballyarnett Country Park. So, for example, whenever you are coming from Paddock Lane, a good friend of mine, David Cragen, who uses the park every day, is in a wheelchair. He has to effectively take his life in his hands going across the road to one of the entrances to Ballyarnett Country Park. There is actually a traffic island, but it doesn't actually align with the entrance to the park or the exit from Paddock Lane. And when I raised this with DFI, they basically said there was nothing that they could do, even in terms of trying to put up some sort of one of those mirrors where you can see where cars are coming from and where people can see pedestrians leaving the park. That's been an uphill battle in itself, even something so minor. So I absolutely support this motion, and more than happy to input into any kind of safe access planning for all the parks in the council district. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Doyle. Councillor Leon.
Thanking you, Mayor, and on behalf of Sinn Féin, thank Councillor O'Neill, Maeve, for bringing the motion. Obviously, primarily around Brook Park, but also in regards to all the parks across city and district. And the issues, obviously, that has been outlined are very pertinent issues across all of the different parks. And I would say as well, in terms to our own council staff and our own council officers for the work that they have put in terms of helping to provide parks and the health and safety work that they carry out within them. And we've seen that in a number of places in recent times, most noticeably in our localities of Strathfoyle and Eglinton. So I think we do need to, and given the experience and the expertise that our council officers bring to it, then in terms of Councillor O'Neill's motion, in terms of tying them with the other agencies, obviously primarily a Department of Infrastructure, then hopefully we can address the issues. In terms of the air pollution, and again, that's well articulated. Unfortunately, so was the uphill struggle that there seems to be to actually bring it down, especially in around that particular area and over around Glendermot Road, which has high concentrations of it. But it's something that obviously, with people around the table, that all of these issues can be looked at. Thanking you.
Thank you, Councillor Fleming. Councillor Hargan.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks, Councillor O'Neill, for putting forward this motion. And look, I would be a regular user of Brook Park, and trying to get from Craig Hill over to the other side of the street into the park with 2 young children is very, very difficult on Craig Hill, especially when there's a lot of traffic. And it's usually the case that cars will stop to let you cross because they can see that it's a difficult road to navigate. So I think that this is something that needs to happen. And this, we already know that this is strong support from residents and from local schools to do something about this. I think this is something lots of people have been talking about now for a long time. And we want people to be able to use Brook Park. We want people to be able to access all our parks. So we have to make it easier for people. We have to make it safer for people. So I think that this, if we can, put these organizations together and come up with a plan, I think it'll be very well received. And maybe this can then become a model for other parks and places that people are attempting to access across the city. So hopefully this will get support from everyone tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hargan. Alderman Ramsey.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Harkin, or sorry, Councillor O'Neill, sorry, for bringing this motion forward. Obviously, access to our green spaces is very, very important, and I'm sure that this will maybe highlight other issues as well as Craigan Road with Brook Park. I know on the water side there, where we have the 3rd phase of the Clooney Greenway, we're fortunate that coming onto Limavai Road, we do have already a traffic light infrastructure there, which will obviously be of great benefit in that area. Yeah, we 100% support this motion going forward, and we hope that it comes to fruition. And obviously, we do possibly find other issues out there that need to be addressed. So thank you very much for bringing the motion forward, Councillor O'Neill. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Boyle. Councillor John Boyle. Okay, can't get Councillor John Boyle. So, members, what I'm going to do, I see no further speakers, so I'm going to pass back the Councillor O'Neill now just to sum up on our motion. Councillor O'Neill.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks to members for the support on the motion. I see there, Councillor Boyle's trying to mute.
Sorry.
John, we've started. Is it? Only go ahead quickly. You will be brief. Go ahead.
I just couldn't get the mute button.
You're already on a minute and a half of your speaking time here.
All right,
So go
doesn't
ahead.
matter. I mean, I don't really have much to say other than to thank Maeve for bringing forward the motion. I like Maeve, Councillor O'Neill. I too have had many conversations with local residents. In fact, obviously, over the years, I've had quite a number of conversations because I'm originally a local resident from that area myself. Sometimes I did push DFA for to be a bit over ambitious, perhaps. I did try for a pelican crossing, but I got a bit of kickback on that. They were telling me the gradient was making something like that extremely difficult, if not impossible. I did have some success in relation to getting children crossings. Thanks, Maeve, for bringing this forward again.
Thank you for that, Councillor Boyle. Okay, Councillor Lee, do you want to sum up now?
Yeah, just again, thanks everybody for the support for this motion. I know the local residents, the local primary school will be really happy with that support. I think there's opportunities for creative and innovative like green solutions that council can lead on. I think it's really important that we get people round the table to really talk through the issues in full and look collaboratively at designing solutions and with local residents at the heart of that. So I think that is really, really important, and it's really important the council lead on that as well. Really fighting for our local residents. So thanks everyone. Cheers.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor O'Neill. Okay, there's a motion on the table, members. I am not hearing any dissenting voices on this motion, so if everybody's happy enough, there's nobody going to abstain or go against it. If for anybody else, could you let me know in the chat box now? Okay, members, the motion from Councillor O'Neill passes unanimous. Members, moving on to our last motion tonight from Councillor Hargan.
Thank you, Mayor. Can I ask to make a short amendment to my motion before I take it as read, if everyone will agree, just to change cancer charity to end of life charity?
Okay, members, happy enough with that. And members, I see a seconder on the chat box, Councillor O'Neill. So go ahead there, Councillor Hargan.
Thank you for that. Yeah, look, we've talked tonight a lot about the cost of living crisis, and soaring energy and household costs are having a devastating impact, as we know, on people right across our communities. And among those most impacted are people with terminal illnesses, people unable to work as a result of their health issues, face unique costs associated with their illness. And the End of Life charity, Mary Curie has commissioned a research looking at those who are dying in poverty, and I have to say that the findings are very much alarming and worrying. I would encourage anyone who wants to look at this a bit further to go and read the report. They had a university department do the study, and it's very, very thorough. It's available up at the Marie Curie website if people want to go and look at it for themselves. And the research shows that it breaks it down, for across the water and for here. And they find that around 2,000 people died in poverty here. 1 in 7 local people are dying in poverty here. Working age people are twice as likely to die below the poverty line as pensioners. Unfortunately, people in Derry and Strabane are among those most at risk. The study finds that it disproportionately impacts women and minority ethnic communities as well. In our district, it finds that 28% of people who died in poverty, who were of working age, and that 11.6% of pensioners died in poverty. I think that these statistics speak for themselves. I mean, it's just not acceptable. It's very worrying. So in response to this, the report has a number of recommendations directed at government departments, towards the DFC to streamline access to different benefits for people who are with terminal illnesses. It's got proposals for pension providers and insurers. It's got proposals to employers. The demands that they're highlighting right now as part of this Dying in Poverty campaign are three, and I'll just go through them quickly. One is the state pension. They're campaigning to make the state pension available to people below 65. So anybody who has a terminal illness diagnosis should be able to access their state pension, and that will reduce poverty among those people who are dying. The second
Councillor
one is,
Hargan, could you bring your remarks to a
yeah,
close,
just finishing up
please?
now. The second one is to make the winter fuel poverty payment available to people who are under 65. The third one is to make all child care schemes available to parents
Councillor
diagnosed with
Hargan,
terminal illness.
thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Appreciate it. Thank you. First on the list I see is Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Mayor, and on behalf of Sinn Féin, I want to thank Councillor Hargan for bringing the motion to this council meeting. We fully support it, and we fully support Marie Curie's campaign, the Dying in Poverty campaign. Mayor, Marie Curie play a vital role in supporting people as they come to terms with a diagnosis of a terminal illness. Not only do they provide practical advice and support through frontline nursing and hospice care, but they also act as strong advocates on their behalf. And it's this advocacy role that has led to this campaign. People are dying in poverty across these islands. And as a party, we're committed to doing everything we can to restore dignity to people as they approach the end of their life. There is no dignity in poverty. There's far too many terminally ill people that have been spending their final weeks and months worrying about finances, and everybody deserves financial security and peace of mind as they approach the end of their life. I think Councillor Harkin referred to DFC, and I'm proud that they say that the Community Minister, Deirdre Hargey, earlier this year accelerated the terminal illness bill, which will fast track access to financial support through benefits without anybody with a terminal illness having to go through the normal application for our assessments. And this campaign fits nicely along with that, and would support and complement it. So as a party, we're committed to doing whatever we can to support people as they're coming towards the end of their lives.
Councillor Jackson, could you bring your remarks to a close, please?
Yeah. Thanks, Mayor. And just in relation
you.
to this committee, this motion, we're more than happy to support it. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, next on the list I have Councillor Farrell. Councillor Farrell, go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks to Councillor Harkin for proposing the motion. I have read the report, the Dying in Poverty report from Marie Curie, and the key line on it for me was that a dying person can have the best doctors and nurses in the world, but if they can't put food on the table or heat their home, they'll not enjoy the best quality of life possible. And that's a fact. 28% of working age people who die across Derry and Strabane die in poverty. And nearly 12% of pensioners who die across our city and district die in poverty. Poverty kills. It's as simple as that. And the Stormont Executive could implement a raft of measures to make life more bearable for people with terminal illnesses. But as we all know, we don't have an executive. We don't have a government in place to introduce these changes. All we have is the DUP and their obstructionary politics. None of the problems facing society, be it health, cost of living, poverty, support for the terminally ill, none of these are going to be addressed until the DUP agree to go back to work. People are literally dying in poverty. So the sooner that the DUP realise that that is more important than the protocol, the better. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Farrell. Alderman Ramsey.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Councillor Harkin, for this very, very good motion. Mary Curie, unfortunately, too many of our families are well aware of the excellent work that they do and the support they give families and those at the end of their life. The fact that they're campaigning for this will obviously get a lot of support, simply because of the good work they've done over the years. And our party obviously fully support Councillor Harkin's motion, and we really do appreciate the fact that Marie Curie, without them, where would all our families be? Those who have lost in the past and those who are currently dealing with family nearing the end of their lives. And obviously, Councillor Farrell there couldn't help himself, having a wee go at the DUP again. But getting back to the motion, the real meaning of the motion, we fully appreciate the fact that it is Marie Curie that are campaigning for this, and this deserves every bit of support we can give it, and we, the DUP, will be supporting the motion. Thank you, Councillor Harkin. And thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for that, Alderman Ramsey. Okay, Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Harkin for bringing this motion forward. I think this is another great motion, another great campaign. You know, Marie Curie has been a helping hand for so many people who have been diagnosed with terminal illness, and the Dying in Poverty campaign is something that we should all be reading, we should all be understanding. I think, you know, just because you've been diagnosed with a terminal illness doesn't mean that the cost of living doesn't still impact you. You know, the costs always go up, the travel, you know, the cost of childcare for a terminally ill parent. You know, it's great to see that these are being included, because this is the real truth of what's happening to people in their lives and how they're impacted by it. So, you know, we are more than happy to support this motion, and we Alliance fully support the Marie Curie call for launching their Dying in Poverty campaign. So more than happy to support, Mayor, and thanks to Councillor Harkin for bringing it. It's been a fantastic motion.
Thank you for that, Councillor Ferguson. And finally, Councillor Doyle.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks to Sean for bringing this forward. It's a really important motion, and I had also had a chance to read the report during the week as well, and you know the measures that are outlined in it, things like you know, the replacement of the severe disability premium, and you know, removing restrictions on the support for mortgage interest loans to terminally ill people, are the things that actually matter to people in that situation. They need financial support. We know that people in this district in particular are suffering from a high level of poverty, but we do need to make changes to the overall system of welfare support in particular, to ensure people can live the last section of their lives with dignity. And I do take into consideration what Christopher said about the work of the Communities Minister with regards to this, because credit has to be given where it's due in that regard. But there is always more we can do. I think that getting a representative from Marie Curie to come in and talk to us about this more will help us get a better understanding and be able to give voice to the concerns of our constituents as well. So thank you for bringing that motion forward, Sean.
Okay, members, thank you for that there. So I see no further members looking to come in. Councillor Hargan, do you want to sum up?
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks everybody for their comments and support for the motion. Look, I'll be honest, I thought that there was more help for people who were terminally ill, and maybe that was an assumption I shouldn't have made, but I did find the report very helpful. I just think that we'll all agree that the statistics are just shockingly bad, and I think it's shocking too that people of working age who have to give up work are face a unique problem of they're not able to work because of their illness, and they're actually thrust into deeper poverty. So it's very, very concerning. And look, the other part of it is as the cost of living crisis gets worse, which I unfortunately think will happen, the pressures on people with a terminal illness, whether they're a pensioner or of working age, is only going to worsen. So we owe it to people to try and do something about this urgently. And I know that there's a block in that right now, but I think we have to do all we can to shift that block. We people should not be thinking about poverty or financial issues when they're trying to live out the rest of their lives with their loved ones. That's an obvious thing I think we can all agree on. We don't want this to get worse because of the cost of living crisis. So let's do whatever we can to do something about this urgently. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Hargan. Okay, members, I'm not hearing any dissenting voices. Very good motion there, Councillor Hargan. Members, we were going to try something new with the hands here on the votes, but I'm just going to leave it to the next mayor and let her work that one out. So anybody against or going to abstain against this motion, could you let me know now? That I'll tell you what to do. If you're going to go against it or abstain, put up the wee hand. Or put it on the chat box as well, because it's confusing people. Okay, that motion passes unanimous. Well done, Councillor Hargan. Right, Attorney, did you just abstain?
No, I was trying to put my hand up, Mayor.
Right, it's okay. We'll do that the next council meeting when I'm not here. Members, okay, moving on.
Mayor, I'm in support of that motion now, just to be clear.
I know you are. We're all supporting it. The motion passes unanimous. Members, don't be worrying. I'll let the next mayor sort that one out. Okay, members, moving on. Open for information response to the motion number 12, 13, 14, and 15. Members, over and out from me. I am so glad I'm going to miss these full council meetings. Thank you very, very much tonight. And thank you for my term. And I am one happy man tonight to get this done. So thank you and good luck. I'll see you all at the AGM. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mayor. Good night.
Cheers, Mayor.
Well done, Graham.
Thank you,
Well
Mayor.
done, Graham.
Thanks, Graham.
Well done, Graham. See you
You.
later. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Graham. Cheers.